Well, good evening. There's so much attention on state races because of what it could mean in 2020 here on this rainy night in Tallahassee in Florida, because slightly more Democrats than Republicans were among the 5.1 million early voters. The Dems think they have an edge tonight. Tonight, historic firsts could be seen. Democratic candidates in Georgia, Florida, and Maryland, each vying to become the first African Americans to take the governor's mansions in their state. And in Vermont, Democrat Christine Hallquist already making history as the first major party transgender nominee. In Bellwether, Florida, all eyes on Democrat Andrew Gillum up against Trump-backed Republican Ron DeSantis.
Us winning tonight, I think, will send a message to Mr. Trump and Mr. DeSantis.
We, did as much as can be done, and I'm happy with letting the chips fall where they may.
Other states perhaps holding clues to 2020, Iowa, Michigan, Nevada, Ohio, and Wisconsin, where Republican Governor Scott Walker is facing what he's called the toughest race of his life. And red Kansas could see a Democratic shift, with Republican Secretary of State Chris Kobach, who led the president's voter fraud commission in a tight contest against Democrat Laura Kelly. In a state energized by Oprah.
I'm Rahena Ellis in Georgia, where there's been long lines at polling places, and voters could make history tonight, where there's been controversy surrounding the Republican candidate and the woman who could become the nation's first black female governor.
With 2020 on the horizon, political control of states vitally important. Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Tallahassee.
President Trump has been crisscrossing the country in the closing days of this election, in effect trying to put himself on the ballot, telling voters, in fact, that casting a ballot for his preferred candidate is like casting a ballot for him. Well, now comes the waiting game at the White House. Hallie Jackson is there for us tonight. Hallie, what's the mood inside?
The headline so far, Lester, no regrets from President Trump. That's what we're hearing from sources in and around the White House, that the president feels like his closing strategy on immigration was the right way to go in some of those 30 rallies since Labor Day. That's even despite concern from other Republicans that the president's divisive rhetoric may actually backfire tonight. I'm told President Trump is especially keyed in on the Florida races, with the White House feeling pretty good about the Senate. Not so much on the House, with the acknowledgement the outlook seems grim for Republicans there. President Trump will be watching the election returns here at the White House with friends and family tonight. Lester.
Hallie Jackson of the White House. Thanks. We're joined now by our election night team of Chuck Todd, Savannah Guthrie, and Andrea Mitchell. Also here, Andrea, we first just heard a moment ago about the president, but Democrats are expressing some confidence, which is a bit surprising given what we saw in 2016.
Confidence about the House, Lester, not the rest of the Congress, but Nancy Pelosi is so confident about winning back the House because Democrats expanded their battlefield for the first time, putting money into 85 seats across the country, giving them multiple paths to get to their magic number of 23. Pelosi said today the question is how big their victory will be, whether it's a wave or a squeaker. But on the Senate side, Democrats we talked to tonight are not optimistic, expecting to lose a handful of Senate seats, maybe gain one that still would leave Republicans in control. So Democrats are pinning their hopes tonight on winning governors races in big Midwestern states, which would improve their chances of retaking the White House.
Andrea, thanks. Let me turn to Chuck in Savannah now. Chuck, you've been looking at some of the exit poll data coming in. What are voters saying are their biggest issues?
Well, first I want to do is I'll tell you what our pollsters will always say is the number one number and issue that they think a midterm election is about, and it's about the president. And the president's job rating, they will can tell you more about which direction we're going than anything else. And the presidential job rating, as you can see here, overall 44% approve, 55% disapprove. And Lester, 47% of voters told us they strongly disapprove of the president's job rating. That tells you the mood of this electorate is negative on the president, and strongly so. That strong disapprove is higher than the overall approve, let alone the somewhat disapprove.
People obviously concerned about health care, and how would that play out?
The exit polls are really interesting in this regard because we asked what was the issue that animated you the most, why did you come out? Look at this, health care gets a bigger vote in our exit polls than the economy, which tells you one thing, we have a really good economy. So healthcare is more identified with a Democratic issue, so that might be a positive sign for Democrats. But I like to do a little math because immigration plus economy, which most voters say Republicans are their preference on, that gets you more of a dead heat. 44% of you put economy and immigration together, 41 for healthcare. All this tells me is we're in for a really exciting night.
We've all talked about this election as a referendum on the president. What are the members saying about the president?
No, it does feel as if it is. You see the referendum aspect of it. I will say this on the issue front: the tiebreaker may be independence, and that's what you see in the president's job rating, and that's what you see right now. The two parties are polarized. Okay, everything is pretty much evenly split. The tiebreaker in everything I've looked here has been independence. So you asked about number one issue among independents. Was it immigration or was it healthcare? It was immigration by almost 20. Healthcare by almost 20 points. So independents looking more like Democrats than Republicans tonight.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, if Democrats get control of the House, you know it starts tomorrow, don't you, Lester? The presidential race for 2020.
Wait a minute, I thought we just started it earlier.
Yes, okay. Well, for Chuck, it never ends.
Yeah.
Is the main thing. But you know, so it starts tomorrow. So the president, if the Democrats win control of the House, he's got Congress to run against, and we can think of many presidents for whom that was a winning strategy, and they did go on to re-election.
All right, you guys have time to get something to eat and rejoin me for our coverage. And depending on how the night goes, we could see control of the House decided by a handful of tight races, possibly in California, where the polls are still hours from closing. NBC's Jacob Soboroff is in Santa Ana, California. Jacob, what's it looking like there?
Lester, tonight it could all come down to California, specifically here in Orange County, California, maybe even in this warehouse of the Orange County Registrar, where ballots from 4 different toss-up congressional districts will be counted. By the way, they're already being counted. Hundreds of thousands, record turnout in absentee ballots are still coming in right now and will continue to come in after tonight. Tonight, in-person voting, 200,000 people plus are expected to actually show up at the polls. Once those votes come back here, they're going to be placed into a pneumatic tube, shot up in the ceiling into a room on a chip where they'll be manually counted. Those absentee ballots are being hand-sorted back here right now. They'll ultimately be counted as well. This is a process that could take up to 30 days here in California if the election ends up being tight. When you talk about what does hundreds of thousands of voters look like, these are their ballots right here. Lester?
All right, Jacob, a look behind the scenes. And also ahead for us, we're going to take you for a look behind the velvet rope.
I'm Cynthia McFadden. Tonight, I'm allowed to go somewhere deep inside 30 Rock I've never been before. The Decision Desk, the beating heart of our election coverage.
We'll show you how NBC News will project tonight's winners. You'll want to stick around for that, and it's going to be a busy night. Our special primetime election coverage begins at 8 p.m. here on NBC. Stay with us.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I go with Anoro.
COPD tries to say, go this way. I say I'll go my own way with Anoro.
Once daily Anoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Anoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Anoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Anoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro.
Ask your doctor about Anoro.
See if you're eligible to pay no more than $10 a month.
I'm not made for this. That's Jake's worry monster. I was thrilled when he had his health scare, but now he runs and drinks palm, and nothing I say makes him worry anymore. Watch. Jake, don't run too hard, you're gonna chafe. You'll chafe. Cripes, is that my pulse?
Join meeting.
Fight your cough and break up mucus with new Alka-Seltzer Plus Cough and Mucus. Just one pill works 12 hours, all day or all night. Max your cold relief with Alka-Seltzer Plus.
When you retire, will you act or feel different? Or will you just be you, without the constraints of a full-time job? You can grow your retirement savings with Pacific Life and create the future that's most meaningful to you. Which means you can retire without retiring from life. Having the flexibility to retire on your terms, that's the power of Pacific. Ask your financial professional about Pacific Life today. Tomorrow.
So much
much at stake in our midterm elections.
After the historic midterm elections, wake up to the results on today. What happened where you are, the headlines across America, and what it means for the future of the country. Tomorrow on Today.
Taylor's windows are the only custom replacement windows manufactured and designed specifically for your climate. Environmentally friendly, energy-efficient windows with unmatched quality, factory-certified installation, and a direct factory lifetime warranty. Taylor's Windows. Not only do Taylor's windows look great and increase your home's value, they practically pay for themselves.
We noticed the power bill being reduced, actually, between 20 and 40%.
Get a free series upgrade. TaylorsWindows.com.
We're back now with more of our election night coverage, and we're taking you inside the secure room where it happens, the NBC News decision desk, where all the top races will be called. NBC's Cynthia McFadden takes us behind the velvet rope, where our team projects the winners.
I'm going to take you somewhere in 30 Rock without this ID. I can't get in, where I have never been allowed to go before. This is NBC's decision desk, the beating heart of our election coverage. Hey, John.
Welcome to the decision desk. Thank you for coming.
Explain to folks at home what happens here.
We project elections across all of the races. The main thing that we want to do here is we want to make sure that we're always right.
He says being right matters more than being first. And it's complicated. NBC's exit polls track over 100,000 voters.
We have mountains of data, and we're running all of that data through literally thousands of models.
How sure do you have to be? Is 90% good enough?
It's absolutely not good enough. Our standards are 99.5%.
Hold it. If you're not 99.5% certain the election doesn't get called on television.
We absolutely use that standard across all of our races. It's always been extremely important to get it right. It's more so now than ever.
Isolated from outside influences, all the senior people in this room must agree before a race is called.
We project elections. We don't predict elections.
And those projections can't be rushed.
How late are we going to be here?
Well, hopefully we can get enough done tonight that some folks can sleep. But some of us, we're on rotating shifts, and somebody at least will be here until everything is called.
She means all night.
And now you're throwing us out so you can do your work.
And we will see you maybe in a couple days.
Thanks so much.
Hard at work. Meanwhile, Lester, lots of Americans wondering tonight if there are foreign governments messing with the election infrastructure as Russia did in 2016. NBC News has learned that a top secret assessment provided to the White House late last week said that there was no evidence of foreign meddling. This evening, intelligence and Homeland Security sources say they stand by that assessment.
All right, Cynthia, thanks very much. We are back in a moment with much more of our election coverage and a check of some other news of the day. Stay with us.
It's a lot easier to make decisions when you know what comes next. If you move your old 401k to a Fidelity IRA, you make sure you're in the loop at every step. From the moment you decide to move your money to the instant your new retirement account is funded. And at Fidelity, you'll see how all your investments are working together. Because when you know where you stand, things are just clearer.
Today, 97% of employers agree that skills like teamwork, attention to detail, and customer service are critical to business success. Like the ones we teach here every day.
I've always looked forward to what's next. I'm still going for my best, even though I live with a higher risk of stroke due to AFib not caused by a heart valve problem. So if there's a better treatment than warfarin, I'm up for that. Eliquis. Eliquis is proven to reduce stroke risk better than warfarin, plus has significantly less major bleeding than warfarin. Eliquis is FDA approved and has both. So what's next? See these guys.
Don't stop taking Eliquis unless your doctor tells you to, as stopping increases your risk of having a stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. While taking Eliquis, you may bruise more easily, and it may take longer than usual for any bleeding to stop. Seek immediate medical care for sudden signs of bleeding, like unusual bruising. Eliquis may increase your bleeding risk if you take certain medicines. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures.
Eliquis, the #1 cardiologist prescribed blood thinner. Ask your doctor at Elabusi's what's next for you.
We're celebrating our 67th anniversary with the guaranteed lowest prices on the #1 rated brands only at Jeff Lynch Appliance and TV Center. Frigidair's huge 26 cubic foot per store refrigerator only $13.97. Save over $300 a year with Maytag's energy efficient loss repair. $100 installation rebate on super quiet KitchenAid dishwashers. $200 in-store gift card on all smart TVs 55-inch and larger. For the very best service, selection, and price, come to Jeff Lynch Appliance and TV Center's 67th anniversary sale.
Back now with some of the day's other headlines. The man suspected of sending more than a dozen pipe bombs to critics of President Trump was ordered held without bail in his first appearance in a New York federal court today. Cesar Sayoc faces up to 48 years behind bars. And a jury found a man from Bangladesh guilty on federal terrorism charges for setting off a pipe bomb in New York's busiest subway in December. After the verdict was read, Akayed Ullah said he was motivated by anger at President Trump, though his defense denied accusations that he had pledged allegiance to ISIS. He now faces life in prison. And a Colorado man has cut a plea deal for the shocking murders of his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters. Chris Watts agreed to plead guilty to 9 counts to avoid the death penalty. Watts had gone on TV to a public plea after his family disappeared in August, only to be arrested a short time later. We're back in a moment with more of our Election Night 2018 coverage after this.
At Wayfair.com, we think that when the big stuff ships free, it's just better.
Oh, Wayfair has free shipping. Game changer. Fast better, free better, everything's better.
Free shipping on orders over $49. Shop better at Wayfair.com.
Wayfair, you got just what I need. Inside out, gotta figure it out. I'm feeling good, doing it my way, every single day, and it feels good.
Sunsweet Amazing Prunes, the feel-good fruit. Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
I was on the fence about changing from a manual to an electric toothbrush, but my hygienist said going electric could lead to way cleaner teeth. She said get the one inspired by dentists, with the round brush head.
Go pro with Oral-B. Oral-B's gentle rounded brush head removes more plaque along the gum line for cleaner teeth and healthier gums. And unlike Sonicare, Oral-B is the first electric toothbrush accepted by the ADA for its effectiveness and safety.
What an amazing clean. I'll only use an Oral-B.
Oral-B. Brush like a pro.
TikTok. Last chance to win $7,000 a week for life from Publishers Clearinghouse. Do that money dance. Hurry, go to PCH.com and enter now. December 21st, you win $7,000 a week for life.
The pistachio is a healthy snack. Excuse me. And I appreciate that in the age of unrealistic body expectations.
Excuse me.
On TV, magazine covers, and elevator weight sensors. Cowards!
Excuse me, I'm just gonna go to my car.
Oh, really? What kind of car you got?
My longtime client Mark asked me to help his daughter. Abby took a job in Chicago and wanted financial advice. We talked about her goals and set up a savings strategy so she can enjoy life now and start planning for tomorrow. I'm looking forward to working with Abby and helping her reach her goals, like I've been doing with her dad for years. With the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. Ameriprise Financial.
Election night. Get up-to-the-minute coverage from WYFF News 4. Live results as they come in. Plus breaking updates straight to your phone with the WYFF 4 app. Commitment 2018 election coverage tonight on WYFF News 4 on Today.
We're back with our Election Night 2018 coverage. Just minutes away now for the next round of poll closings. While many Many Americans are still casting their votes at this hour. Stay with NBC News all night long for the most up-to-date election results and the big surprises in store this evening. Savannah Guthrie and Chuck Todd will join me for our special coverage beginning at 8 p.m.
When dangerous conditions are lurking. We're in the alert mode because of severe. Trust John Cesarich and the WYFF News 4 weather team. Has been issued. WYFF News 4, live local breaking news. Live Super Doppler 4 HD gives you the edge on severe weather. Now from WYFF News 4, a Commitment 2018 election special.
Good evening, I'm Carol Clark.
And I'm Michael Cogdell. Welcome to what is bound to be a long and fascinating night on this election night. We thank you for joining us also with this Commitment 2018 Election Night Special.
We have team coverage of the midterm elections tonight from Greenville to Columbia to Clemson, Anderson, Georgia, Washington, D.C.
We begin with the race for South Carolina governor. The Republican incumbent, Henry McMaster, facing the Democratic challenger James Smith. The polls have just now closed in Georgia and in South Carolina, although those already in line will still be able to vote.
Henry McMaster says he is ready to win the governor's seat. He tells us he's loved these last 2 years serving his home state, but he has been interested in serving as governor since he was in high school. And he's campaigned hard for the voters to put him in office for the next 4 years, he says. Voter turnout even ahead of today in early voting was up as much as 50% over the last midterm elections. The McMaster campaign was asked if that's a positive for the governor.
People are enthusiastic. I mean, you were there for our 5-day, 16-stop bus tour. You saw firsthand the excitement that we were greeted with voters across the state. People are excited. They're excited about this message. They're motivated to get out. They're motivated to get out to hold our majorities in Congress, to keep our leader in the governor, to keep our leadership in the legislature. And we're really looking forward to tonight.
The ballroom there at the Hilton in Columbia is revving up for a big election party. We understand the buffet is already set up. Our Jane Robelo is there. We'll keep you going back and forth between there and here and around a lot of the other places where candidates are set up. Democratic candidate Governor James Smith holding his election results brunch party in Columbia as well.
And that's where we'll find our Tim Waller. He is live in Columbia covering that campaign. Tim?
Michael and Carol, as you can hear, this party is getting started. The music is in full swing right now, and James Smith's supporters are starting to crowd into the venue. It's been a busy day for the Democratic candidate for governor. James Smith started his day off this morning in his home precinct of Richland County, casting a vote for himself, as well as other Democrats running in political races. Smith came here to downtown Columbia a little bit earlier this afternoon, and he told us he believes he has a shot of winning this race because of the large number of people who have turned out at the polls. Listen to this.
I mean, you could look at what we know of the absentee vote right now, and the participation in there in many areas. There are people that haven't voted in the last 4 years that wouldn't even be polled or show up in any polls. So there's an entire, very large population, including those that twice the new registrants. So there is a massive number of people that are voting today that would have never gotten a call for a poll.
Keep in mind, it's been a very long time since South Carolina has had a Democratic governor. Jim Hodges was the last Democrat to hold that seat from 1999 to 2003. But James Smith says these are very different times, and he's expecting big things tonight when the votes are counted. Tim Waller, WYFF News 4, live in Columbia.
Thank you, Tim. Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy announced he would not seek re-election, and that left South Carolina's U.S. House District 4 seat open. 19 people initially put their names forward, and after the primary and runoff, we are down to 3. WYFF News 4's Nigel Robertson is live and local in Greenville covering Republican William Timmons' campaign for District 4. Nigel?
Carol, I am at a gym. We are actually at Swamp Rabbit CrossFit. This is one of a number of businesses that William Timmons owns. He says he wants to take what he learned at the South Carolina House, working in the Senate, to the U.S. House in Washington, D.C. Our cameras were there right after Timmons voted this morning. He started his campaign facing more than a dozen Republicans trying to get this seat. Now he is the GOP candidate in this race. He spent the past few days crisscrossing the state trying to help other Republicans in their races. Just a short time ago, I talked to William Timmons about why he decided to run for this seat.
I think I can make a difference. I think that our country's on the verge of being unsavable, and I'm willing to go and fight and try to help get our country back on track.
Now remember, the polls are closed, but William Timmons is not the only candidate running for this seat. Democrat Brandon Brown is running, and Guy Fieri running under the American Party umbrella. Live in Greenville, Nigel Robertson, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Nigel. And we will hear from the other candidates, Brandon Brown and Guy Fieri, coming up in this newscast.
As you mentioned there at the top of this broadcast, it should be a fascinating night between us and NBC. We'll keep you covered what's going on in the Carolinas and Georgia and around the country, including the race for Congress in the 3rd District of South Carolina. More on this and plenty more coming up. Stay with us.
WYFF News 4.
We have breaking news out of Greenville County.
Getting there first with Sky 4.
You can see smoke right now.
These are live pictures from Sky 4.
Looking closer with live crews on the scene.
A stolen car led to a chase.
Troopers are on the scene of the school.
And finding the truth fast.
We're still working to get more information from
When the story's big, we're on it.
As a crumbling road swallowed tractor
The
trailer.
team you trust to keep you connected.
You can count on the fact that we will be here.
WYFF News 4. Live local breaking news.
There's so much melty cheese in this double-stacked cheeseburger.
2 layers of melty cheese.
Take it easy.
I'm having a meltdown.
I know. Hey, let's just snap out of it, okay? Just try to...
Sorry, what is this supposed to do?
Get the new quarter-pound double-stacked cheeseburger plus tots and try order ahead to get happy hour anytime.
The world never stops. It's constantly changing, evolving, moving forward. And so are we. Introducing Spectrum Mobile. Built on America's largest, most reliable LTE network. Combined with our ultra-fast nationwide Wi-Fi network, Spectrum Internet customers get our unlimited data plan for $45 a line, or our buy the gig plan for $14 a gig. Call 833-205-7283. Then enjoy a faster, better connection, streaming, surfing, gaming, or whatever you're into. All with unlimited talk and text and no contracts. Call 833-205-7283. The best network, the best devices, the best value. Get Spectrum Mobile today with our unlimited data plan for $45 a line and save up to 40% on your mobile bill. Or get our buy the gig plan and pay as you go for $14 a gig. All with unlimited talk and text. Call 833-205-7283 or visit SpectrumMobile.com.
The WYFF4 app. Download now.
What would make Sonic's Golden Soft Pretzel Twist a great meal?
What?
A cinnamon sugar pretzel twist for dessert?
Tell me it has cream cheese frosting.
Consider yourself told.
Oh, thank you. Get an original or sweet pretzel twist for $1.99. Try order ahead to get happy hour anytime.
Republican Congressman Jeff Duncan hoping to keep his seat in the U.S. House. He faces Democratic challenger Mary Garron and American Party candidate Dave Moore. WYFF News 4's Gabrielle Komorowski is live and local in Anderson with Duncan's candidate.
Many Jeff Duncan supporters have come here to the Bleckley Inn in downtown Anderson, hoping that this will soon be a victory party. Duncan won this district with 73% of the vote in 2016 and 71% in 2014. I want to show you this video now. This is video of Jeff Duncan voting earlier today in Lawrence County. He spent the rest of the day traveling to other precincts to meet with the voters. Now, this room, as you can probably hear, is starting to fill up. And just a short time ago, we spoke with Janine and Jim Hatfield about why they say they want to send Duncan back to Congress for a 5th term.
Because we believe in what Jeff stands for. He believes in small government. He believes in small businesses. He has conservative values. And we believe in all those things. And we believe in Jeff. Jeff's a good man.
And we're told that Jeff Duncan will be right here at the Bleckley Inn watching the results come in now that the polls are closed. We're hoping to see him soon and also, of course, speak with him. We'll continue to cover this for you live here from downtown Anderson. Gabrielle Komorowski, WYFF News 4.
Near the party already, Gabby. Thank you for that. Mary Garron hoping to win that 3rd seat for the Democrats in South Carolina. WYFF News 4's Madeline Hackett is covering her campaign. She is live and local in Clemson tonight. Madeline?
Well, Michael and Carol, we're here at Garen's watch party right on Clemson campus at Amici's. A pretty fitting seeing, of course, her role in education and, of course, her focus for primary public schools as well as affordability for college. Her campaign began here back in April of 2017, and tonight is where that campaign ultimately will end. I spoke with Garen 2 weeks ago ahead of our WYFF4 Commitment 2018 special. She anticipated these final 2 weeks of campaigning to be busy, and today was no exception. Out campaigning at local beauty parlors, a tattoo shop, even held a baby kangaroo at one point. Pretty cute. Garen says she's proud of what she's accomplished and remains cautiously optimistic as the votes roll in.
I have done everything I can for 19 months, and as you said, I mean, yes, I waited 19 months for this day. People have asked, are you nervous? And honestly, I'm at peace because I know we've worked hard, and what we're hearing on the ground is that folks are looking for a change regardless of their party.
And Garen says the unprecedented voter turnout that we've seen today will work in her advantage. She touts herself as a mother, an educator, and a fighter for all, and says regardless of today's outcomes, she is proud and committed to continuing that fight. And you hear them cheering behind, very optimistic again about tonight's turnout. We'll toss back to you in the studio.
Madeline, thank you. Still to come tonight, the race for South Carolina's U.S. House District 5.
Also, we're going to get to Washington, D.C., check in with our team there about how today's elections and the results tonight could change the balance of power on Capitol Hill.
None of us can do it alone. So we answer this call together. Stronger as one.
Wednesday's most watched dramas. Chicago Wednesday on NBC.
A midterm election for the ages. The stakes couldn't be higher. Every state, every seat, every voice, every vote. Julie Musker, Savannah Guthrie, and Chuck Todd with Tom Brokaw and Andrea Mitchell. Tonight, starting at 8/7 Central on NBC.
Changing seasons and fresh starts. It's morning go time. Wake up and watch Jeff, Amanda, and Dale. A new team for a familiar routine.
Stories that matter to your morning.
Weather and traffic, so you hit the road feeling confident.
Helping you plan for today, tomorrow, and the day after that.
When it's morning go time, we've got you.
Live, local breaking news that fits your routine. Wake up and watch WYFF News for Today.
Oh, your hands are a little cold. Oh, come on, man. Right now at NTB, save up to $100 instantly when you purchase 4 select tires with paid installation on top brand tires. Plus, use your Restore credit card and pay no interest for 12 months. Only at NTB. Hey, where you going? Come on. Can I get down?
Sunny or severe. John knows weather on the WYFF4 app.
Erectile dysfunction is a very serious medical issue. Did you know that over 60% of men over the age of 40 experience this? The little blue pill does not work for the majority of men who try them. We realize this at Elevate Men's Clinic. We have successfully helped thousands of men. For a limited time, the office visit is only $89. If we cannot prove our treatments, your visit will be free. Call today, 828-222-4662. ElevateMen'sClinic.com.
Ralph Norman trying to keep his seat in the U.S. House in South Carolina's 5th District. Both Norman and his Democratic challenger, Archie Parnell, are awaiting election results in Rock Hill tonight. They also face Constitution Party candidate Michael Chandler. WYFF News 4's Nolan Blair is live in Rock Hill tonight with more. Nolan?
Michael and Carol, folks are gathering here at the Magnolia Room in Rock Hill for Congressman Ralph Norman's watch party. He hopes to defeat Archie Parnell for the second time in 16 months. In 2017, Norman won in a special election by less than 3,000 votes. I spoke to both earlier tonight. Both seem to be encouraged by this year's turnout.
I think that we are really excited about today because there's so many people turning out. I think at this particular precinct that we're visiting, we have 100 more voters right now before it closes than they had in 2016. That's a presidential year. I think it's good. I think people are motivated. I think if you ask what has brought the people out, I think it's a combination of Kavanaugh, the hearings, I think the caravan. I think the president has done a great job of ginning up support.
Both also seemed confident that tonight will go their way. We're going to be watching this race throughout the night. Reporting live in Rock Hill, Nolan Blair, WIFF News 4.
Thank you so much. Is riding on the outcome of this midterm election.
First of all, control of Congress. WYFF News 4 Sally Kidd is live in Washington. Sally, the balance of power hangs in the balance. What are you hearing about the battle for the House?
Well, Michael and Carol, of course, it's still very early, but 9 polls have closed so far in 9 states. We're keeping an eye on races where Democrats have a chance to pick off some seats, places like Virginia, Kentucky, and Florida, where the races have been very close, to name a few. But essentially, the battle for the House is being fought in a few dozen districts. Many of these are suburban districts where polls have shown growing dissatisfaction with President Trump among women and among college-educated voters. They are considered swing votes, so a lot of focus there. Democrats will need a net gain of 23 seats to win back control of the House, and according to what we've been seeing in the polls leading up to today, that does appear to be doable. Back to you.
A battle going on for the U.S. Senate could be a little bit easier, perhaps, for the Democrats there. What are you hearing on that front?
That's right. There are some very close races there as well, though the battle for control of the Senate is running mostly through states with Democratic incumbents. These are states that President Trump won in 2016. So we're keeping an eye on about 10 states with Democratic incumbents in those red states, among them Indiana, Missouri, West Virginia, Florida, Ohio, to name a few. But this is considered an uphill battle for Democrats. They would need a net gain of 2 seats to win the majority, and that's considered a tall order, as most polling is pointing to Republicans at least retaining their majority in the Senate, if not expanding it.
Sally, other than the obvious, what's going to change if Democrats gain control of the House or Senate?
Yeah, we're likely going to see Democrats really get aggressive, try to block as much of President Trump's agenda as possible, his legislative agenda. They've already said that if they win the House, their top priority, their first piece of legislation is going to be a major, all-encompassing reform bill. It's going to take into account things like campaign finance, ethics, lobbying, voting rights laws. They're really going to try to go big here. And, of course, anything like that would be dead on arrival in a Republican-controlled Senate. But this is more really about sending a message, more messaging bills, and really kind of laying the groundwork for the narrative for 2020. Back to you.
Sally, thank you for that. Brandon Brown, of course, speaking of Capitol Hill, Brandon Brown did win the Democratic nomination to run for Congress in the 4th District in the upstate, hoping to turn Trey Gowdy's red seat to blue. WIFF News 4's Joe Ripley is live and local in Greenville as Brown and his supporters wait for those early numbers to start coming in. Joe, what do you say?
That's right. We are still tracking those numbers, Michael, and we're at Blues Boulevard right now in downtown Greenville, awaiting the arrival of a Democratic nominee for the 4th Congressional District of Brandon Brown. We'll step out so you can see the setup behind me here at Blues Boulevard. You can see the banners up, the podium's up. Got some drums, too. Brandon Brown hoping he drummed up enough support in this race. He did have an uphill battle in this one, facing William Timmons, the Republican nominee to replace, as you mentioned earlier, Congressman Trey Gowdy. A little history for you. Back in 2016, Gowdy amassed more than 2/3 of the vote in Greenville and Spartanburg counties. And Brown says despite the odds going against him, he believes in a blue wave he says is sweeping the nation tonight. Of course, we will keep our eyes on the results. We will have them for you as they come in. For now, we are live here in downtown Greenville. Joe Ripley, WIFF News 4.
Joe, American Party candidate Guy Fury in the running for South Carolina's U.S. House District 4 as well. He and his supporters are gathered at the Irish Pub in Greenville to watch results come in. Fury says this has been an amazing experience.
Win or lose, it's been an amazing experience. I know that I've got the experience to be a part of the difference. If people want to fix our broken health insurance and broken healthcare system, I have 22 years experience in that field, so I could be a part of the solution there.
Fury says his top priority is affordable health care. He, Timmons, and Brown are all fighting to fill Congressman Trey Gowdy's seat.
WYFF News 4 investigates keeping a close eye on some of the issues some of you had at the polls as you tried to vote today. We have a copy of a letter the ACLU sent to the State Election Commission earlier today. That letter specifically mentions long lines because of equipment malfunctioning in 9 counties. They include Newberry, Pickens, and Spartanburg County as well. The letter calls on the commission to direct poll workers to issue paper ballots to help voters move through the process more quickly. That, of course, earlier today. The polls are closed now. It also asks the commission to remind voters they can still vote if they were in line by 7 o'clock. Still ahead, we're going to hear from our analyst. Here he is, Chip Falco, talking about some of those highly contested races across the Carolinas and Georgia and the country.
Plus, we'll take a look at the amendments you saw today on the ballots.
There's so much melty cheese in this double-stacked cheeseburger.
2 layers of melty cheese.
Take it easy.
I'm having a meltdown.
I know. Hey, let's just snap out of it, okay? Just try to...
Sorry, what is this supposed to do?
Get the new quarter-pound double-stack cheeseburger plus tots and try order ahead to get happy hour anytime.
Be the superhero in your neighborhood. Be prepared and always remember to bring a bag. Find out more ways you can protect water quality at clemson.edu/Carolina Clear.
Stay up with WYFF News 4 at 11. Carol Clark and Michael Cogdill, keeping you connected with what's happening right now on TV or on the WYFF 4 app.
Police do say they have a suspect.
The local news you trust to end your day and plan for tomorrow. Stay up with WYFF News 4 at 11.
The Hawklaw screech, $1 million for my accident.
See what your case is really worth. You might screech too.
Make the call. 888 Hawklaw.
Trust John Cesarich and the WYFF News 4 weather team.
We understand our local weather.
Sunny can turn to severe and flash.
Lots of lightning and extremely heavy rainfall.
So we're focused on keeping you prepared.
We're watching this cell right.
When dangerous conditions are lurking.
We're in the alert mode because of super.
We're your friends on Facebook.
Pushing alerts from our WYFF4 app.
And broadcasting live everywhere you need it.
Accurate local forecasts from your experienced local team. WYFF News 4.
What would make Sonic's Golden Soft Pretzel Twist a great meal?
What?
A cinnamon sugar pretzel twist for dessert?
Tell me it has cream cheese frosting.
Consider yourself told.
Oh, thank you.
Get an original or sweet pretzel twist for $1.99. Try order ahead to get happy hour anytime.
The race for governor in Georgia will be one of the most closely watched races in the country tonight.
3 candidates there on the ballot: the Republican Brian Kemp, the Democrat Stacey Abrams, and the Libertarian Ted Metz. Kemp cast his ballot earlier today. Chandra Abrams could be the country's first African-American female governor if she is elected tonight. Abrams voted early.
I've never seen a time where our families here in the great state of Georgia had more at stake than they do in this contest. The contrasts are clear.
And I want to be the governor who makes certain that we don't just see Atlanta and the other hub cities, but that we come all the way south, and that we make certain that this region is as strong and as vibrant as its capacity allows it to be.
Kemp is Georgia's Secretary of State, and on Sunday he launched an investigation accusing Democrats of attempting to hack into the voter registration system. Georgia Democrats deny the accusations, calling Kemp's investigation an abuse of power.
Chip Falco joins us right now. Such a hard-fought, really bitter campaign, set of campaigns race down there. This race for governor of Georgia is a referendum on what?
It's a referendum on Trump because Trump's made just about every race a referendum on him in the country. It also is, Kemp was balancing an act there, being Secretary of State and making those charges at the last minute, which many think may have backfired on him. We'll see. The president was in Georgia, I believe, Macon, maybe over the weekend.
Right.
And so Oprah came in, so it has been highly watched. Tons of money have been spent. And Georgia's a largest state east of the Mississippi with a very diverse population. If you look at the African American vote around Fulton County and then the rest of the state. So,
So what are we seeing in polls leading up to right now
Well, I think over the weekend I saw a poll that showed about a 1% difference there. So it could really go tight. It could be a long night in Georgia.
Do you think someone will get 50 plus 1, 50% plus 1, which is the law there in Georgia?
With that third-party candidate, you might be in for a runoff. That is something to look at. I don't know how much traction Met's had, but there's been a lot of attention on the other two candidates. But I don't think you'll have a runoff. But it's been a hard-fought, very ugly race.
Well, this might be Monday morning quarterbacking, but considering Kemp's position now and what he had to say about the election, should he have recused himself from any of that?
Yeah, I think he should have. I mean, if it goes to a runoff, the Secretary of State in Georgia is the one in charge of the runoff. So it's going to be kind of hard to see how that's going to be viewed by the opposing side as there being any objectivity there. So let's hope it doesn't go to a runoff.
Can we get that board back up there on the race for governor of Georgia? These are very, very early numbers, and it's a wide spread. Again, very early. What do you make of that, Chip?
Let's see. It's just too early. I mean,
We're not sure where the numbers are from.
Right. It's just too early to make any kind of predictions on that. I mean, that could be one big precinct in Cobb County.
Yeah, somewhere in Atlanta. Yeah. Going to be a long night, so potentially right there. The runoff, if it does happen, is what, December 4th?
I believe that's correct. 3 weeks after that. And, of course, you've got a big race in Florida, too. So it's...
for the Senate.
We were fairly calm in South Carolina.
Yeah, this time.
We'll chat with you later. Thank you, Chip. Voters in the Carolinas and Georgia decided on amendments to the state's constitutions today. In addition to candidates for political office, only one amendment was on the ballot for voters in South Carolina. They're voting for or against the governor appointing the superintendent of education. A yes vote requires the superintendent be appointed by the governor with the consent of the Senate. A no vote maintains the current method of electing a superintendent of education.
In North Carolina, there were 6 amendments on the ballot on this election day. The first one of those would protect people's rights to hunt and fish as a way of managing game and wildlife. The second one was strengthen the rights of crime victims in North Carolina. It's also known as Marsy's Law. It's named for a woman who was killed by her boyfriend. The third amendment would lower the income tax rate cap from 10% to 7% there in North Carolina. The current rates are below that number, so it's important to note here this would not cut any state taxes there in North Carolina, at least not yet. The fourth would require voters to bring a photo ID with them to the polls in the future. And the fifth would change the way judges are...
There were 5 amendments on the ballot. One amendment would use sales tax from outdoor equipment and reserve it for preserving Georgia's park.
Very important things for America.
Room would only handle business issues. Another amendment will let the state reevaluate the worth of land used for growing trees for timber. This amendment would also send money to rural counties that have more timberland. Another is similar to one in North Carolina. It gives crime victims more rights. And finally, one amendment only affects counties where there are independent city school districts in addition to the county district. It deals with how to decide how to use sales tax for education.
Still ahead, numbers for you, the early vote totals, they are beginning to come in. We'll check with our crews as well, covering campaigns for South Carolina governor and some races for Congress as well. Our special coverage continues in just a bit.
Award-winning full service and low costs.
How am I going to explain this?
If you don't like their answer,
Tees just $4. Men's Arctic and Promo fleece separates $8.88. Entire stock of Carhartt 20% off. PJ sets or slippers $10.49. Designer handbags $22. And our entire stock of Poopery 25% off. Hamrick's incredible 36-hour sale.
The world never stops. It's constantly changing, evolving, moving forward. And so are we. Introducing Spectrum Mobile, built on America's largest, most reliable LTE network. Combined with our ultra-fast nationwide Wi-Fi network, Spectrum Internet customers get our unlimited data plan for $45 a line, or our buy-to-gig plan for $14 a gig. Call 833-205-7283. Then enjoy a faster, better connection, streaming, surfing, gaming, or whatever you're into. All with unlimited talk and text and no contracts. Call 833-205-7283. The best network, the best devices, the best value. Get Spectrum Mobile today with our unlimited data plan for $45 a line and save up to 40% on your mobile bill. Or get our buy the gig plan and pay as you go for $14 a gig, all with unlimited talk and text. Call 833-205-7283 or visit spectrummobile.com.
Early in this election night, and we do thank you for staying with us. Our Commitment 2018 election special goes on.
Yeah, the voting totals are starting to come in, albeit slowly. This is very early, as you can see, with 335 for Henry McMaster to James Smith's 291. Don't know quite what to make of that. We don't even really know where those votes are from. But as you can see, the process is starting to roll into place, and we are starting to see some numbers.
So many absentee ballots being counted right now as well. They could not be counted until today and tonight. WIFF News 4's Jane Robelo is live in Columbia. She's covering the governor in this report. Jane?
This room is filling up here. We're in the Palmetto Ballroom here at the Hilton Columbia Center in downtown Columbia. The noise level is rising. The enthusiasm level is rising. People here feeling very festive and incredibly confident, Michael and Carol. High voter turnout has been going on today, and even high voter turnout for the early voting, too, on Friday, or earlier this week. McMaster-Evitt campaign, they say that is a positive sign for them.
I think that Democrat values time and again have proven to not resonate with South Carolina voters. This is a conservative state. This is a red state. It's a red state for a reason, because we hold these values dear. Cutting taxes, not expanding abortion rights. I mean, a record of voting for abortion on demand. He has a record of voting for tax increases. Those two tenets, among many others, are Democratic values that don't resonate with South Carolina voters, and they're not going to resonate this year either.
Well, we'll know for sure within a couple of hours, or really maybe even within a few minutes. There's a lot of buzz around here that this race may be called a lot earlier than we had anticipated. This is the election party headquarters. Let me step out of the way so you can see, for not just the McMaster-Evitt campaign, but this is the election headquarters for the other 6 statewide GOP candidates. All eyes are on the race results here. Of course, we will keep you updated throughout the night. We'll be here reporting live. Jane Robelo in Columbia, WIFF News 4.
Thank you, Jane. We'll be talking with you in just a little bit. Also watching results come in Columbia tonight. Democratic candidate for Governor James Smith.
Both camps there are partying in the capital city. WIFF News 4's Tim Waller is live in Columbia covering the Smith-Norrell campaign. Tim?
Michael and Carol, this is the part of our broadcast where reporters in the field have to start talking very loudly. As you can hear, there is live music on the stage here behind me, and lots of James Smith supporters crowding this venue. And here's the man they all came out to support today, Democrat James Smith, the candidate for governor, voting at his home precinct in Richland County. Later in the day, he and running mate Mandy Powers-Norrell made an appearance here in downtown Columbia. Here's what Powers-Norrell said about voter turnout and how she predicts it could affect the outcome of this race.
I mean, you can look at what we know of the absentee vote right now, and the participation in there in many areas. There are people that haven't voted in the last 4 years that wouldn't even be polled or show up in any polls. So there's an entire, very large population, including those at twice the new registrants. So there is a massive number of people that are voting today that would have never gotten a call for a poll.
Both candidates said today they're optimistic about their chances in this election. Of course, we will know soon enough as results statewide keep pouring in. Tim Waller, WIFF News 4, live in Columbia.
Tim, thank you for that. William Tim is one of 3 candidates vying to fill the seat Trey Gowdy is vacating there in the 4th District for Congress in the upstate. WIFF News 4 Nigel Robertson is live and local in Greenville, covering the Republican camp in the 4th District. Nigel?
Michael, we are at Swamp Rabbit CrossFit here in Greenville. This is where the Greenville County GOP is holding its victory rally tonight. But we are hearing that because of long lines at County Square, we aren't going to get return numbers for about another hour. A lot of people here were expecting to see numbers coming in already by now, but because of the sheer volume of people who voted, we are not expecting those numbers to come in for another hour, as I mentioned. This gym is owned by William Timmons. He is running for the 4th Congressional District seat. Now, we have some video from earlier today where Timmons voted around 9 this morning. Our cameras caught up with him moments after he voted. I talked to him just a short time ago, and he says he is excited, not just about the election, but he says he's ready to get to Washington and start working if he wins. Remember, getting to this day has been a long journey. There was a primary, then a runoff, then months of campaigning for tonight.
I think I can make a difference. I think that our country's on the verge of being unsavable, and I'm willing to go and fight and try to help get our country back on track.
Remember, Timmons is facing Democrat Brandon Brown. We will hear from Brandon Brown in just a short time within this newscast, and they're facing American Party candidate Guy Fieri. This has been a heated race ever since Trey Gowdy announced that he was not running for re-election. We will be watching it all very closely. Live in Greenville, Nigel Robertson, WYFF News 4.
We're getting in his gym time, nonetheless, on this election night. Republican Congressman Jeff Duncan hoping to keep his seat there in the 3rd District. That's the extreme western part of South Carolina. Tonight he faces Democratic challenger Mary Guerin and the American Party candidate Dave Moore. WYFF News 4's Gabrielle Komorowski back live with us in Anderson with the Duncan campaign. Gabby?
And we are here live at the Bleckley Inn in downtown Anderson. Congressman Jeff Duncan just walked right into the building. We appreciate you being here to chat with us. Tell me how you're feeling as these very early returns are coming in.
Well, we feel good about it. You know, high voter turnout all over the district and really all over the state. And thank you guys for being here. This is the second time we've had this event at this venue, and we got a great crowd already building here, and looking forward to the returns, both in my race, statewide and nationally, to see if Republicans maintain control of the House.
You are going for your 5th term in Congress. 2 years ago, voters sent you back to Congress with more than 70% of the vote. How confident do you feel about the results this evening?
Well, I'm hoping to, achieve those same numbers tonight. We've worked hard on the campaign. I've worked hard as congressman for the last 8 years, and, promises made, promises kept isn't just a Donald Trump term. We've done that as well. And folks are just happy with the economy. They like the policies coming out of Washington. They're improving their lives, and they like the work I've done. So I feel fairly confident at this point. And the early returns were up, but very, very few return numbers have come in yet. But we're going to be here tonight, and look forward to seeing how it all shakes out.
We're hearing that turnout has been quite good, especially for a midterm election. Why do you think that is?
I think it's really a reflection on President Trump, and he's been all over the country, and folks have covered it. I think folks are liking what they see in the economy. They have jobs, better jobs. They got raises in their paycheck due to tax reform. The economy's on fire, and I think that's reflected in the polls. As James Carville said when he was working for Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid. And it is the economy. The economy is doing very well right now, and I think that will reflect nationwide today.
All right, well, Congressman Jeff Duncan going for a 5th term. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. We hope to catch up with you a little later on this evening. Thank you so much. Live in downtown Anderson, Gabrielle Komorowski, WYFF News 4.
Thank you, Gabby. Brandon Brown hoping to win that 4th district seat for the Democrats. WYFF News 4's Joe Ripley is live and local in Greenville, where Brown and his supporters are watching the results roll in. Joe?
Yeah, we're here at Blues Boulevard at Jazz Club here. You can see the setup behind me, the banners, Brandon Brown for Congress. We're expecting a little music here as well. The supporters are here. We are still awaiting the arrival tonight of Brandon Brown, the Democrat, challenging for the 4th Congressional District. I asked Brown earlier about his strategy, taking a more grassroots approach to this campaign. He hasn't spent as much money as his Republican challenger, William Timmons, also running for the 4th District. Timmons has spent about $1.7 million. Brown has spent about $50,000. But Brown's been getting out, hitting the streets, talking to voters one-on-one, hoping that connection drives them to the polls. He's also counting on what he calls a blue wave to sweep through Spartanburg, Greenville counties, and hopefully make a difference. We will continue to keep our eyes on the results. We will speak with Brandon once the results come in. We'll bring those to you live. Joe Ripley, WYFF News 4, live in Greenville.
Well, thanks for that. We'll see you soon. Still to come, how President Trump's appearances around the country have affected these midterm elections. Stay with us. Commitment 2018, our specialty, continues after a short break.
Be the superhero in your neighborhood. Be prepared and always remember to bring a bag. Find out more ways you can protect water quality at clemson.edu/Carolina Clear.
Everything local, all in one place. The WYFF4 app. Stay connected with push alerts, breaking news, right now video, and live Super Doppler 4 HD weather for your zip code. Stay in the know on your schedule. Interactive radar, live traffic, and our latest newscasts. Always streaming 24/7. Everything local, all in one place. The WYFF4 app. Download now.
Men, do you ever feel like things don't work the way they used to? As men get older, their bodies change, and things don't work as well or as often as they used to. Want to feel in control again? Call Elevate Men's Clinic. We've helped thousands of men, and we would love to help you too. And for a limited time, our office visit is only $89. Call Elevate Men's Clinic at 828-222-4662 or visit elevatemensclinic.com.
Wake up and watch WYFF News for Today.
I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Everything hurt, like someone was pounding my head, and I had a lot of medical bills.
When you're hurt in a car wreck, medical bills add up fast. Don't get stuck with bills you can't pay. Call George Zink Injury Lawyers at 864-ALL-9s.
They're going to fight every step of the way to make sure that you are taken care of.
Call 864-ALL-9s.
If you need someone to fight for you,
call George Zink. Find out right now how we can help you. Call all 9s.
President Donald Trump has been traveling the country stumping for Republican candidates.
WYFF News 4's Aixa Diaz is live in Washington. And Aixa, what kind of impact have his appearances been making in this midterm?
Well, Michael and Carol, we're finding out that tonight, as the results start coming in from these midterm elections, the president has said this midterm election is a referendum on his presidency. He's told voters, pretend I'm on the ballot. And he's been crisscrossing the country in the past several weeks, talking to voters and talking to his supporters, urging them to vote Republican today. He has held dozens of rallies championing for these GOP candidates in both the House, Senate, as well as gubernatorial races. The question, though, is will his rhetoric resonate with suburban voters? There's a thought from analysts that perhaps some of these vulnerable GOP candidates in the suburbs or Republicans trying to flip a seat that's currently held by Democrats just aren't going to be helped by the president's message on immigration. He's been a hardliner on that issue, has really talked about the caravan a lot in recent days, and not so much on the economy, something that's going well for Republicans. So some believe that he should have been focusing more on the economy. That would have maybe resonated more with those more moderate Republican voters rather than talking about immigration quite as much.
It's such a big partisan divide in the country right now. What are you hearing there in D.C.? How is this election expected to affect that?
Well, Michael, keep in mind that tomorrow the 2020 campaign begins. So even though there could be some unifying message from one of the two sides after the midterm elections, they're going to be campaigning to win the presidency on the Democratic side or to keep the White House on President Trump's side. You know, the president has warned about Speaker Pelosi if the Democrats take over the House. So how will that play out? How will that relationship unfold if the president does now have a Democratic House led by Nancy Pelosi, someone that the president has railed against during his rallies? Now, there could be some bipartisanship, perhaps, maybe on issues that the Democrats have wanted, the Republicans haven't, but the president has seemed maybe warm to issues like trade or infrastructure spending, something the president has wanted to do. So perhaps there could be some bipartisanship there, but the president did give a TV interview yesterday, and when he was asked what regrets he has, he says that perhaps his tone could have been softer in his first 2 years. So we'll see if perhaps his tone does soften, but many say that his rhetoric during these rallies don't indicate that he's going to change.
Aixa Diaz reporting for us from Washington tonight. Thank you very much. Back here at home, Ralph Norman trying to maintain his seat in the U.S. House in South Carolina's 5th District.
There he is facing Democratic challenger Archie Parnell and the Constitution Party candidate Michael Chandler. And WYFF News 4's Nolan Blair back live in Rock Hill where the camps are awaiting numbers right now. Nolan?
Michael and Carol, the crowd is growing here
at Congressman Norman's watch party. Supporters hoping he can knock off Archie Parnell for the second time in 16 months. I am joined by a Norman supporter, Linda, why did you support Ralph this election?
I've known Ralph for several years, and we supported him his first go-round. Ralph is a man of integrity. He's not a politician. He supports my president. He believes in term limits. I guess all the things that I believe in, Ralph supports.
What were the top issues for you this election cycle?
Well, the border is a big one, of course. I'm worried about the security of my country and just following the Constitution and keeping us safe. The president's job is to keep us safe, and he supports my president, so that's a big one.
Thank you, Linda. Supporters here, hopefully, certainly hoping for another win by Congressman Norman. We're going to be following this race throughout the night, and we will keep you updated. Reporting live in Rock Hill, Noel Blair, WIFF News 4.
Stacey Abrams and her supporters are gathered in Atlanta tonight to watch results come in.
That's where we find Dale Julien. Dale?
We're just outside the Hyatt Regency. We're about to go back inside after yet another security sweep of the room in which several hundred Abrams supporters will be gathering in the next few minutes along with the media. And I can tell you, there's a feeling of excitement here as well as wisdom about the nature of Georgia elections going back several decades. But the news is, first, early voting here in Georgia. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Went from 1.1 million early voters here in 2014 to 2.1 million early voters. 65% of those early voters, eligible voters, Democrat, 55% Republican. Normally, here in Georgia, that's flipped in terms of early voting. And there's a key congressional district to watch and a county in the Atlanta suburban area as the night goes on, as we get some votes back. Gwinnett County has a 7th congressional district. It is now a purple district. It used to be Republican. So that is a swing area that the folks in this hotel will be looking at in the coming hours. And they're going to have to wait a long time, folks, because in Savannah, there are people who've been waiting since 7 o'clock, more than 1,000 voters. And nice to see you. All right. There's been more than 1,000 people waiting in line, and they probably won't get to the polls until about 9:30, and they'll be closing that one in Savannah. Finally here in Gwinnett County, they're holding them open to 9:25 tonight because there's so many people in line. They want to make sure they give them a fair shake. Back to you.
Wow.
Astounding.
Yeah, we turn now to the race to fill South Carolina's congressional seat in the 1st District. That's along the South Carolina coast in the Charleston area.
Yeah, formerly held by former Governor Mark Sanford. It's Republican Katie Arrington against the Democrat Joe Cunningham. Looks like it's going to be a close race into the night. Early numbers here, and there are no numbers yet. So this winner, again, as I said, they will replace Congressman Mark Sanford. He's been representing that district since 2013.
Arrington upset Sanford back in the June primary after getting an endorsement from President Trump on Twitter. Shortly after the primary, Arrington was seriously hurt in a car crash after a wrong-way driver hit her. The crash killed the driver of the other car, left Arrington hospitalized. Once released, she spent weeks campaigning.
Arrington is facing, as I said, the Democrat Joe Cunningham. He suspended his campaign activity following that car crash back in June. Cunningham is hoping to win over the seat, which has been red since 1981, the election being called a battleground race.
Chip Felkel joins us again, our political analyst, to talk about this. District 1's been an interesting race to watch.
Very. It has been. First, it was an upset. I think Sanford took it, he didn't take it seriously and got caught off guard, didn't get into the race late. Trump's tweet certainly helped, but I've got to give Arrington credit for running a very good campaign in the primary. The NRCC just put $230,000 in that race, which would suggest that the National Republican Congressional Committee would suggest that they think Arrington was in trouble and that Cunningham was giving her a pretty good run for her money. So I expect her, I think she'll squeak it out. Maybe not, but it's certainly been very competitive.
Why is it so close?
Well, one of the issues that she backtracked on was offshore drilling. Originally said she was for it, then she said she was against it.
For the coast.
And so, of course, that's a very big issue on the coast, and he's made a lot of hay off of that.
Let's talk about the race for governor in Georgia. You heard that people will be in line until 9:30. That's how long the lines are in Georgia right now.
There were some problems with machines earlier in the day, though, weren't
there? There have been problems. There have been massive lines, and the candidate for the Republican Party is actually the Secretary of State in charge of elections. So it will be very, very interesting and full of controversy.
What else are you watching tonight?
Well, here in South Carolina, we had a governor's race. It looks like at least the latest polls were showing that Mastro was ahead there. That's one that gets the most interest, of course. We have new members, a new member of Congress here, but I think if I'm looking, what I'm really looking at around the country are the governor's races that are going blue, because how that affects redistricting going forward in 2011, and how that will affect, frankly, how in some of the Rust Belt states that Trump won are electing Democrat governors this time around, and what does that do to a Trump re-elect effort in terms of setting the stage for that?
There's what, 30-something?
There's 36 governors that are up.
Right.
There's probably 6 or 7 that have been Republican that will probably go Democrat this time around.
Yeah, so you change the executive branch, you change pretty much everything. It trickles down through the entire
It does,
process.
and so they oversee the redistricting process. Those lines get redrawn, plus it's just a perception issue in terms of whether those states are leaning to the right or leaning to the left, red or blue, whatever. But it does set the stage for an interesting re-elect, which we anticipate Trump will undertake.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
It's local. Thank you very much. When we come back, a last look at some local races.
Back in a moment.
There's so much melty cheese in this double-stacked cheeseburger.
2 layers of melty cheese.
Hey, easy.
I'm having a meltdown.
I know. Hey, let's just snap out of it, okay? Just try to...
Sorry, what is this supposed to do?
Get the new quarter-pound double-stacked cheeseburger plus tots and try order ahead to get happy hour anytime.
Oh, your hands are a little cold. Oh, come on, man.
Right now at NTB, save up to $100 instantly when you purchase 4 select tires with paid installation on top brand tires. Plus, use your store credit card and pay no interest for 12 months only at NTB.
Hey, where you going? Come on. Can I get down?
The world never stops. It's constantly changing, evolving, moving forward. And so are we. Introducing Spectrum Mobile. Built on America's largest, most reliable LTE network. Combined with our ultra-fast nationwide Wi-Fi network, Spectrum Internet customers get our unlimited data plan for $45 a line, or our buy to gig plan for $14 a gig. Call 833-205-7283. Then enjoy a faster, better connection with streaming, surfing, gaming, or whatever you're into. All with unlimited talk and text and no contracts. Call 833-205-7283. The best network, the best devices, the best value. Get Spectrum Mobile today with our unlimited data plan for $45 a line and save up to 40% on your mobile bill. Or get our buy the gig plan and pay as you go for $14 a gig, all with unlimited talk and text. Call 833-205-7283 or visit SpectrumMobile.com.
MeTV Carolina. Great TV never gets old.
What would make Sonic's Golden Soft Pretzel Twist a great meal?
What?
A cinnamon sugar pretzel twist for dessert?
Tell me it has cream cheese frosting.
Consider yourself told.
Oh, thank you. Get an original or sweet pretzel twist for $1.99. Try order ahead to get happy hour anytime.
All right, let's get you back to it here. One of the most closely watched races this election cycle nationally has been that race for governor in Georgia.
We have crews following both Republican Brian Kemp and Democrat Stacey Abrams. Sharon Jackson is live in Athens, Georgia with Kemp's campaign. Sharon?
Well, during this whole campaign, Kemp has reached out to those rural and conservative voters, and that is a huge electorate here in Georgia. And tonight we're going to see how that campaign strategy has worked out for him. But Michael and Carol, I have to tell you that during the last hour, a group called Protect Democracy has filed a lawsuit against Secretary of State Brian Kemp. Now, this lawsuit requests a restraining order against him having any part in counting the election. Now, when I did speak with some of Kemp's campaign managers, they said that no one has reviewed that lawsuit as of yet, and they have no comment on that. So we're going to see how that unfolds later on this week. But early voting did hit a record here in Georgia with more than 2.1 million people casting their votes, but Election Day had an unprecedented amount of people voting as well. We've received reports of people waiting on lines for 1 to 2 hours at precincts that 15-minute lines were in previous years, and several polling locations, mainly near Atlanta and Savannah, have reported problems. A Gwinnett County polling location had malfunctioning voting equipment, forcing voters to either wait, fill out a paper ballot, or leave, and a polling location in Fulton County with only 3 voting machines had hundreds of voters in line. Now, several polling locations in Fulton and Gwinnett County, once again, those are near Atlanta, had to send in additional machines. And just days before Georgia voters encountered these polling problems, Brian Kemp's office launched an investigation into the Democratic Party of Georgia. Now, Kemp's office alleges that someone tried to hack into the state's voter registration system with no evidence pointing to the state Democrat Party. The Secretary of State's office requested FBI involvement into the attempted hacking. And investigators later found out that a Democratic Party volunteer sent an email to her boss outlining how the Georgia voting system could be exposed to hackers. Her boss forwarded the email to cyber experts, including an expert that's a part of the Secretary of State's office. Now, despite suspicions of voter hacking and voter suppression that has come out of this race, millions of people have casted their vote here in Georgia today, and now we're down to the final night. Now, we'll be here all night at Kemp's campaign headquarters, and you can see behind me, they are just now getting started. Speakers are starting to hit the stage, and we're going to be here all night as those numbers roll in. Reporting in Athens, Sharon Johnson, back to you.
You know what, Sharon, thank you for that. Let's get you to the mountains now. 9 counties in our part of western North Carolina electing sheriffs on this election day. In Buncombe County, 3 candidates on the ballot: the Republican Shag Higgins, the Democrat Quentin Miller, and the Libertarian Tracy DeBrule.
One more check in at the governor race results if we can. Numbers have been very early. We're not exactly sure where these numbers come from, but as you can see, it's a huge leap from the several hundred we had about 20 minutes. 56% of the vote. Henry McMaster, 44%.
Chip Felkel is right here. We're watching this. I don't know if we can chat with Chip for just a second here. Chip, what do you make of that? Again, it's very, very early, but 56 to 44. Did you see that?
It's very early. I don't have any idea where those votes have come from, but you know, that's encouraging for James Smith's folks, but I think we've got a long night. And
of course, yeah.
The 48, 61, 48, hard to say knowing what exactly where those votes came from to be able to kind of make any assessment of that.
Yeah, of course, a high turnout, and that's very interesting given you know, what we've seen in past midterm elections. Could that create a situation where James Smith wins this election, Chip?
It is a long shot for a Democrat to win statewide in South Carolina.
Right.
James Smith is the best candidate the Democrats could have possibly put forward.
Fritz Hollins had done it.
Fritz Hollins had done it. Ben, how long ago was that?
A while ago. Yeah.
So, and Hodges was the last one. So, I'm not sure that he closed the deal with enough voters and gave. In my experience, you have to make an incumbent unacceptable. I know people don't like to hear that. That usually involves negative campaigning.
Right.
And I'm not sure he was able to close that deal. Be a long night.
Yeah, Chip, we thank you for your insight into that. There are other things on the ballot. There are a number of sheriff's races, and there are some questions about alcohol use, especially in Anderson County. Voters will decide on Sunday alcohol sales there. And in Anderson city limits, restaurants can serve, but stores cannot sell. Outside the city limits, you can't buy alcohol anywhere on Sunday except in the city of Pendleton.
And Carol, there are the results right there. The yes, well, the no. We just don't have any numbers at all on Anderson County alcohol sales, but as soon as we get those, we'll get them to you here during our cut-ins, which will bring you throughout the night. We'll keep you up to date on that the ticker that we keep calling on the bottom of your screen as well. We'll let you know what happens with this race and all the others as well.
Yeah, let's look again at the sheriff's races in western North Carolina. We did see the Buncombe County results, at least the contenders for that race just a few moments ago. But in Graham County, Joseph Jones is the Republican racing against John Lovin, the Democrat there. That's in Graham County for sheriff. Jackson County is looking to choose a sheriff as well tonight.
Yeah, let's look at Jackson County. And I want to get back to Buncombe County in just a moment here. Let's see if we have any numbers from Jackson County. Important to note here. Yeah, we have some numbers there. The Democrat with a handy lead there in Jackson County for sheriff. The polls, Carol, as you've reminded people, just closed at 7:30 there in North Carolina. It was 6:30 to 7:30 in North Carolina. Can we get back to Buncombe County? Okay, so we can't get back to Buncombe County, but there was an interesting disparity there. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, well, let's look at Macon County right now. Republican Robbie Holland there, Democrat Eric Giles, and petition candidate Brian Carpenter. We are getting some numbers here as well. And as you pointed out, Michael, the polls have not been closed for that long, but Holland in the lead right now, 64% of the vote. Giles 28, Carpenter 8%.
Polk County, very quickly here with 30 seconds to go. Could be historic there. Do we have Polk County? Let's see. No, there's Buncombe County. Okay, Quentin Miller, you see there the Democrat leading there in Buncombe County. It's an interesting disparity. Buncombe County tends to be blue, the rest of the state, that part of the state tends to be red. It's going to be very interesting tonight.
More numbers here and more numbers throughout the night. We will be with you as the numbers come in. Thanks for watching.
Good night for now.
WYFF News 4.
We have breaking news out of Greenville County.
Looking closer with live crews on the scene.
A stolen car led to a chase.
And finding the truth fast.
We're still working to get more information.
WYFF News 4. Live local breaking news.
When you're in an accident, it's your right to choose where to take your vehicle. The insurance company could pick a place that works for them, but you deserve the best. So you should insist on John White for repairs. We work with all insurance companies to get you back on the road and your vehicle repaired like nothing ever happened with the best in the business once. Your leader in collision repairs for over 23 years. When you want it done right, call Jock White. Call me at 313-9991. That's 864-313-9991. Or visit us at jockwhitecollision.com.
Watch Greenville Health System's Healthy All Year Health Minute, Wednesdays at 6 a.m. and Saturdays at 7 a.m. on WYFF4. Be aware, be healthy, be happy.
This November, the balance of power in Washington, D.C. and the direction we move as a country are on the line. This is the place to hear all those voices that could shape tomorrow. Today, join me for Matter of Fact, for conversations as diverse as America.
Matter of Fact, Saturday at 7 on WYFF4. Stay up with WYFF News 4 at 11. Carol Clark and Michael Cogdill, keeping you connected with what's happening right now. The local news you trust to end your day and plan for tomorrow. Stay up with WYFF News 4 at 11. Sunny or severe, John knows weather on the WYFF4 app.
Good evening from NBC News election headquarters in the heart of New York City and our coverage of a midterm election like no other.
As polls close across the country at this hour, we are here with the entire NBC News team to bring you all the results and what they'll mean for you on this night for the history books.
Election night 2018. America votes and decides its future. Two very different messages.
Can you believe what's going on in this country?
We have this incredible opportunity to make history. There is so much at state houses across the country.
Who will have the advantage for 2020 and the race for the White House?
Get out in 2018 because you
The president says tonight is a referendum on him. Democrats agree.
It's our time to fight back. Are you ready to fight back? This is the most important election you have ever voted in, no matter how old or young you are.
A divided country at a crossroads. An election marked by hate, violence, and tragedy. Tonight, the moment of truth.
For NBC News, the home of America's future. Live from Democracy Plaza in New York. Here's Lester Holt and Savannah Guthrie.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our coverage of the 2018 midterm elections. Joining Savannah and me here, Chuck Todd and Andrea Mitchell. It promises to be a long and exciting night ahead. It's now 8 o'clock in the East. Polls have just closed in 16 states. That brings to 25 states now where polls have closed half the country. And we already have some races we're about to call.
We do breaking news right now, but first let's take a look at what to watch for tonight. As we know, Republicans control Congress with majorities in both the House and the Senate. So for the Democrats, winning that control really comes down to these two numbers tonight, 23 and 2. The Democrats began the night needing to pick up 23 seats to gain control of the House, 2 seats to flip the Senate. So let's take a look at where it stands at this hour. As you can see, Democrats have already picked up 2 seats. They need 21 more to go if they're going to get control. And let's show you where those wins happen for the Democrats. Northern Virginia, Barbara Comstock, the incumbent, is beat out by Jennifer Wexton. And then let's go to Florida's 27th district. Donna Shalala, do you remember that name? Former HHS secretary under President Clinton, now going to be the second oldest freshman to enter Congress in history.
We're watching a couple other big Florida races. Of course, the Florida Senate race. Bill Nelson trying to hang on there. Right now, that's too close to call. Also, the Florida governor's race, another one that has generated national attention, also too close to call. Let's see how things are doing in the Missouri Senate race. As of right now, that is too close to call. Claire McCaskill in a very tough fight to keep her job.
And a tough fight in Indiana, big Midwestern battleground. Joe Donnelly, the incumbent, and you can see that it is too close to call. We'll continue to watch that one. Tennessee Senate, very tight race there. Too early to call. We don't have the numbers to give you at this moment. And West Virginia, too early to call. Senator Manchin in a big fight there to retain that seat for the Democrats.
The Georgia governor's race attracting a lot of national attention, a lot of star power right now. Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp, the Republican. That is too early to call in Georgia. You see 8% right now in Georgia, very early.
Let's bring in Chuck. Okay, nothing shocks you. Anything surprising so far tonight?
Not so far. It is sort of going as the national polls had indicated. We're not seeing evidence of a tsunami, nor are we seeing evidence of a sort of a bounce back for the Republicans. It's going about how we projected. Look at the first two pickups being Virginia 10 and Florida 27. But let me show you why we're starting to see what we think is somewhat of a predictable night. First of all, it's what our exit poll found about the president's standing. And his approval rating was sitting at 44%. If you take the approve here, 13 and 31, 44. But here's what's amazing. The strongly disapprove at 47 is actually a bigger number than the combined approve. And by the way, there's another 8% who supposedly somewhat disapproved of him. Our pollsters will tell you, the president's job rating will tell you where the House is going. For context, in 2010, President Obama's job rating was 47%. It led to 60-plus seats lost. And Bill Clinton in 1994 had a job rating of 48%, and it led to a 50-plus seat loss in the House. Donald Trump, 44. What's it going to be? Let me show you why Democrats should be feeling really good about tonight. It's not that they won Virginia 10. It's how we were able to call this race before the wealthier part of the district's votes were even counted. We called this race when Loudoun County came in, if you will. Well, Loudoun County is more of a middle-class suburb. She won Loudoun County by nearly 20 points. If you extrapolate that out, this is going to mean there are 30 to 40 seats that have suburban counties like Loudoun that would give we knew that in the wealthier counties, like Fairfax County, that they were going to do well. That would be a big deal. Let me take you a little bit to a few other Virginia races that we've been watching. There's two we haven't called. Virginia 7, as you can see here, this one is as tight as can be. I think this will tell us a lot about the night. If this night is going as well for Democrats as they think it's going to, then this is the type of seat that they should eke out. 56, we got a lot more to report, but her lead has been holding. And then there's the 2nd congressional district, which is Virginia Beach here. This is as swingy as they get. The Republican incumbent Scott Taylor narrowly holding on here. But overall, so far, I would say what we're watching is a night that we thought we were going to see a good Democratic night. Doesn't look like a tsunami wave just yet. But Republicans probably at least have a fighter's chance in the Senate.
Well, we should probably define all this oceanography term that Chuck uses. The blue wave is what people use to refer to Democrats coming back in a big way and retaking control. So will it be a ripple? Will it be a wave? Will it be a tsunami? Andrea, what do you have on your eye? Or will it be nothing at all?
But what Democrats are saying is that they really are confident not only in taking back the House, but in doing a little bit better than some might expect. Not a big wave so far, but what they did this time, which was the first time they've ever done this, 85 seats they put money in. They put more money competitively in than did their Republican counterpart committee, and they expanded the battlefield, so they have multiple ways to get to that 23 seats.
All right, let's look at some other results we have coming in right now in the Massachusetts Senate race. Let's put it up here. NBC News projects Elizabeth Warren will win in Massachusetts. Also, Ohio Senate, Sherrod Brown will be returning to the Senate. We project that he will win in the Ohio Senate.
Let's look at Connecticut Senate race. This is one that wasn't in much suspense. Chris Murphy, the incumbent, going back to Congress, and the same story can be told in Delaware. Tom Carper, also the incumbent, and he is headed back to the United States Senate.
And in the Maryland Senate race, Ben Cardin, the incumbent, will be returning. We project he wins. Also, Pennsylvania Senate, the two-way race, Bob Casey, Lou Barletta. The incumbent Democrat, Bob Casey, will go on to win tonight.
All right, and let's talk about Rhode Island. Sheldon Whitehouse, incumbent senator, headed back to the United States Senate.
Our team of correspondents is standing by tonight. tonight across the country at the key states and the key races. You can see them there. Our road warriors will be talking to all of them tonight. But let's begin with Hallie Jackson at the White House. Hallie, we understand there was a viewing party to be had at the White House tonight.
Still happening here at the White House, Lester, and it really is a who's who of Trump world, you could say. We understand that major GOP donors, friends of the president, his family have all joined him and the First Lady inside the residence to watch these returns roll in. So President Trump is seeing the same numbers as the rest of America right now. What's the mood? Listen, folks that I'm talking to inside and around the White House say they're feeling pretty good about the Senate. That's been the mood so far. As Chuck pointed out, no real chuckers yet. The mood is much more grim when it comes to the House. We are told by several sources that President Trump has indicated to allies that he would be ready to work with a House Speaker Nancy Pelosi if, in fact, Democrats flip the House and Nancy Pelosi remains in charge there. That's despite his attacks against her on the campaign trail. You've got the president really looking at what is going to be a referendum on him. His allies are saying, listen, voters are voting based on the president's agenda, not on the president as a person, but the president himself has linked these midterms to his own performance so far. The races the president is watching, I'm told Florida is a big one he is keying in on, as well as Indiana, Missouri, and Arizona. These are very close races that could end up determining, of course, control of the Senate, as the president's keeping an eye on those tonight, Lester.
I think we're all looking at, in many cases, the same races. All right, Hallie Jackson, thanks.
Let's go over to NBC's Garrett Hick. He's covering the Senate race in Texas. Polls still open there. This has been a hot one. And you are at Beto O'Rourke's headquarters in El Paso, the Democrat who's trying to join the Senate. Garrett, what's up there?
Savannah, the O'Rourke campaign has captured the imagination of Democrats in Texas who have not had anything to cheer about in roughly the last 25 years, the last time Texans elected a Democrat to any statewide office. As you said, polls are still open here in El Paso, O'Rourke's hometown, where he is still out on the trail, driving around the city, talking to voters, talking to his supporters and volunteers at polling places. And polls will stay open a little bit longer in some precincts in Harris County. That's Houston. It's the biggest vote-generating county in the state. If O'Rourke is going to be the first Democratic senator from Texas since 1988, he needs to have a huge night there as well. He's up against just incredibly difficult math in this state, and the Ted Cruz campaign, who is based really a lot of their campaign on the senator's improved relationship with Donald Trump, on the Texas economy, and on saying Beto O'Rourke is still too liberal for the state of Texas.
Garrett, thank you very much.
And Gabe Gutierrez is at the Republican Ted Cruz headquarters in Houston. Gabe.
Hi there, Lester. Well, excitement is building at Ted Cruz's headquarters here. All this talk about a blue wave, well, these Republicans just don't want to hear it. Even though their opponent has raised $69 million, they say that the math just doesn't add up for Democrats here in Texas. Now, this campaign, of course, for Ted Cruz comes just 2 years after the heated 2016 campaign, where he called then-candidate Donald Trump a narcissist and a pathological liar. Well, during this campaign, Ted Cruz accepted the president's support. Major issues here in Texas, immigration and border security, and his campaign feels that that could put him over the top. Right now, we're watching the turnout in some of those southern counties, those border counties, and wondering whether that will break for Democrats or Republicans. 4.8 million early voters here in Texas, a record, and the Republicans feel the math just does not add up for Democrats. Lester?
All right, Gabe, thanks very much.
All right, let's go to NBC's Rahima Ellis. She's covering the Georgia governor's race. She's reporting tonight from Democrat Stacey Abrams' headquarters in Atlanta. Rahima, what's the mood there?
What I can tell you is this is the calm before the watch party. There are hundreds of Stacey Abrams enthusiastic supporters who are expected to crowd into this room. As soon as they can get through some extremely heavy security, people say they've never seen anything like the security before for a governor's race in Georgia. But history could be made here. If Abrams wins, she'll become the first Democratic governor in the state in 20 years and the first black female governor in all of the United States. Savannah?
Rahima, thank you. We'll be back to you a lot tonight.
I'm going to go to NBC's Kerry Sanders. He's covering the Florida governor's race. He joins us from Democrat Andrew Gillum's headquarters in Tallahassee. What's the scene there?
Well, I'm on the campus of Florida A&M here at FAMU, where Andrew Gillum actually graduated in 2003. He is a rattler, and he's got a lot of support here. If he's elected, he will become the first black president. He will become the first black governor here in Florida. Meantime, down in Orlando, Ron DeSantis, the Republican who has gotten the endorsement of Donald Trump, is anxiously waiting. As he exited today from the polls, he said, "We'll see which way it rolls. The cookie crumbles the way the cookie crumbles." Some Republicans told me that they thought that was perhaps a little bit of a defeatist attitude, but nonetheless, they're waiting now for the polls to be answered, and all the voting is done. We have 2 time zones here, guys, and everybody's finished their voting. Now it's just a matter of all those electronic votes making it to the computer and being counted.
It's all over but the counting, right?
All right, Carrie, thanks.
Let's go to NBC's Jacob Sobroff. He's talking to voters in Santa Ana, California. Could be a late night out there in California, Jacob.
It sure could, Savannah. This is the front of the line at the Orange County Registrar's office. Come on out. You sure wants to get out of the building. Come with me. If the house doesn't flip on the East Coast or the center part of the country, it could very well go down out here, and we could go late into the night. If not, a week or 30 days from now, that state election law in California, 4 different toss-up congressional districts are being decided and voted on at this central polling location, and you can see the interest is just out of control. The registrar recorder here in Orange County, careful as we go up the stairs here, has said that this is the highest turnout he has ever seen in a midterm election. In his 15 years on the job, the line continues to stretch down here. There are 200,000 people that are expected to vote in person. Hundreds of thousands of absentee ballots are expected to be tabulated after this day. And look, there's an entire another line all the way down that way, you guys. Back to you.
All right, Jacob, thank you. Santa Ana, California, a lot of contested races in California.
I want to go to Chuck right now. Chuck, I was curious, you're looking at Florida very carefully as well. Are we seeing the Senate and the governor's race, they're mirroring each other?
They're totally mirroring each other, and I'll just show you. I mean, there's no, and for a while there was a lot of discernment here. As you can see, now DeSantis, welcome to Florida, right? DeSantis is up by about 30,000 votes here. Let me show you in the Senate race. Rick Scott is up about 10,000 votes. So they've pretty much been in sync off and on. Let me show you why it's been very interesting. When Gillum was ahead, we could say, oh, he's overperforming in a couple of Republican counties. DeSantis, though, let me show you what's going on here in Miami-Dade County. Andrew Gillum's winning by 21 points. But look at this when you compare it to Clinton-Trump number here. Gillum's actually underperforming Clinton in Dade County, one of the few places where Gillum is underperforming Clinton in Florida, and DeSantis is overperforming in Trump. Now, I can tell you this, they played the socialist card, the Venezuela card, that whole thing. There is some conservative Latin voters, when they hear the S word, socialism. So this is something that's, you're like, okay, that is one explanation there. But let me take you to why Gillum has been holding pretty well. He is overperforming Democrats slightly in Seminole County. For instance, he's winning Seminole County. Now, Seminole County is a middle-class suburb just north of Orlando. It's actually where my mother lives, for what it's worth. As you see there, Gillum's narrowly had almost all of the county vote in. This was the county that Trump narrowly won. So, look, it's Florida. This thing is going to be what every race in Florida is decided. Rick Scott won both of his governorships by less than 1% of the vote. I have a feeling we're going to see both Florida races decided by less than 1% of the vote.
And greetings to Mrs. Todd.
And hi, Mom.
Go ahead and do the hi, Mom. As we move across the country, every mom's get
I have made sure she lives in a swing county.
Yeah.
And as soon as it's not, I'm going to make her move.
You were born for this. Yeah. Casey Hunt joins us. She covers Capitol Hill for us, and I know you've been working the phones all day long. So how are people feeling? How are both parties feeling as they head into this night?
I just would like to say, I would also like to say hi, Mom. Also in a swing district. The reality is that the Democrats that I have been talking to have been incredibly nervous to predict a big night. They just feel so burned by what happened to them in 2016. But that said, all the information that's coming into them is telling them that they are going to take back the House, and potentially with a significant margin. Everybody thinks that Nancy Pelosi is going to be the next Speaker of the House. Now, the Senate map, it's a much different story. And as I'm talking to people, as these votes have started to come in, Indiana is one early sign where people feel, Republicans feel, I should say, that they are coming in perhaps more strongly than they thought that they might. Joe Donnelly had been the Democrat. He's an incumbent. He had been one that they weren't terribly worried about. They thought they were going to need to be more worried about him. But these initial signs may not be good, and that could have signs for other Senate races across the country.
But 2016 looms large here.
Very much
We've seen the movie before. for.
And everyone just feels a little scared, a little cowed, not ready to start feeling good until those numbers are actually.
Republicans have pickup opportunities as well in the Senate. They may well increase their numbers tonight by the time it's all said and done. Got a few more results to show you. Well, sort of. Georgia's governor's race. This is a big one. You've probably been hearing about it, but it is way too early to call this one. We could go late into the night counting these votes, perhaps even to a runoff. Let's look at Massachusetts governor now. We can call a winner. Charlie Baker, the Republican, of course, in the Democratic stronghold state of Massachusetts, is the victor tonight.
A lot of governors' seats open here. The Pennsylvania governor, Tom Wolf, the incumbent, is the projected winner. In Tennessee, in the governor's race there, we're at Bill Lee, the Republican, is the projected winner.
All right, let's go to Chuck. The governor's races. I mean, we've been talking so much about Congress, but the governor's races, what's happening in the state houses on this election night is huge.
Well, it is, because this is, fast forward 4 years, and we go to 2022. What happens in between 18 and 22? We redraw the maps. You redraw the congressional district maps. So Democrats are hoping if they can get governorships in some of the big states, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio. Think about those, how big they are, how many congressional districts they are. All of that, most of them, I think, were in, somewhere in Republican control when they did it. The legislatures may all be in Republican control, but if you have a Democratic governor, you might be able to get a better map, if you will, or a fairer map, depending on your political persuasion. So that's why these governorships tonight, the governors elected tonight, may help draw the maps for the Congress that we elect in 2022.
Everything Matters will be connecting the dots all night long. We'll take a break, be back in a moment, and look at the Senate battlegrounds. Hope you can stay with us.
Critics are saying the Frontrunner is among the best political thrillers ever made.
This is the test of American leadership.
Jackman delivers a powerful performance. Smart, he's handsome.
He is a man with power and opportunity, and I take certain responsibility.
He is simply superb.
Just because some other paper used gossip doesn't mean that it does. It does now.
Phenomenal.
Should I sacrifice my self-respect?
Jackman is Frontrunner. Rated R. Everywhere November 21st.
Breathe freely fast with Vicks Sinex.
My congestion's gone.
I can breathe again! I can breathe again!
Vicks Sinex. Breathe on.
Hi, I'm Misha, and my favorite bar is Crunch.
Delicious.
100% real chocolate, embracing the lightness of crispy rice. Crunch. The chocolate bar, all of it.
That first flip of the night, we may be ready for a call, and that is Virginia 10. And that is the Democrat Jennifer Wexton, who's a state senator, up big with 67.
On NBC. WYFF News 4.
We have breaking news out of Greenville County.
There first with Sky 4.
You can see the smoke right now.
These are live pictures from Sky 4.
Look closer with live crews on the scene.
A stolen car led to a chase.
Troopers are on the scene of a
And finding the truth fast.
We're still working to get more information.
When the story's big, we're on it.
As a crumbling road swallow the tractor
The team you trust to keep you connected.
You can count on the fact that
WYFF News 4. Live local breaking news.
Our hot law screech, $360,000 for my car accident.
See what your case is really worth. You might screech too.
Make the call. Hot law.
For over 40 years, Suttles Nut Farm has been your go-to place for every type of nut at great prices. We're now in Greenville, right off Woodruff Road. Better hurry, prices and supplies won't last. Make your holiday special with Suttles Nut Farm. Woodruff Road, turn beside Crystal. The Rooms to Go holiday sale is going on now. So prepare to be amazed and finance interest-free for 60 months. Come find the room of your dreams, starting at $6.99. Choose from a great selection at amazing prices with low interest-free monthly payments. Celebrate the most incredible offers and 60-month interest-free financing at the Rooms to Go holiday sale going on now.
Welcome back, and when we hit the 8:30 hour in about 8 minutes from here, there will be a poll closing in Arkansas, and we'll be able to give you a characterization of that race.
Our coverage
coverage continues. Chuck, this is where we count on you to be our first canary in the coal mine. And
Well,
you're still looking at Florida, my friend.
It's Florida because, look, we have 90% in. We've got, what do we got here? 40,000, essentially a 40,000 vote margin. So at this point, it's about where is the vote left, all right? So, by the way, I'm going to put out the presidential comparison numbers so you can see. Just a reminder, it's Florida. It was decided by less than a percentage point in 16, and it looks like we're going to do that here. But let me show you Dade County. We still have 25% of the vote to come in. As you can see, if DeSantis narrowly ekes this out, this will be what we look at. The fact that Gillum underperformed Clinton in Dade County. But there's missing vote there. There's 25% of Dade County still got to come in. Here's a big one, Broward, nearly half of Broward. So that's a good sign if you're Gillum that half of Broward is in. That's, you know, sometimes you don't know what if half is exactly double of what's there or if there's more counted. And in Broward, Gillum's been overperforming there. Palm Beach, though, as you can see, almost all in. Yes, he overperformed Clinton, but there's no more vote there. Alachua County, I hope no, let's see here. Get Gainesville here right. I think it's sitting over my, I think it was Gainesville up. Maybe it's, there we go. Alachua, as you can see, this is Gainesville, the University of Florida. Only 1% in. It's just the early vote that in. This could be a big Gillum County. He was trying to do well in the universities here. So that appears to be a reigning vote. Look, I'm not going to sit here and call any race. But there looks like there's more potential Gillum vote left than there is DeSantis vote left. And by the way, the Senate race and the governor's race, they essentially are the same thing. Scott's lead is a little bit more narrow than the DeSantis lead, but they seem to be moving together.
What are you saying, Chuck?
I'm just saying it's Florida. It's going to be decided by less than a percentage point.
It's Florida.
I know. It's still Florida. If you're wondering here, like I said, it looks like there's more Gillum vote left than DeSantis, but let's be realistic. It's Florida.
Yeah. And the president went to Florida 5 times, I think, since the beginning of the year.
Right. One lesson I think that we're going to be taking away from Florida if Andrew Gillum pulls this out is that running as a progressive Democrat who's focused on getting minorities to the polls is the way for Democrats to win. And in 2020, that is going to be a lesson. And frankly, it's going to be a divide in the Democratic Party between those who believe they need to win back.
Let me interrupt here because I think we have a flip on the governor's side. Let's take a look at the Illinois governor's race and let's see where we're at. J.B. Pritzker is going to carry the night in Illinois. That's a flip for Democrats. Also, Maryland governor.
Yeah, Maryland governor, it's Larry Hogan who takes the race there. Again, Maryland, another so-called blue state where you have a red governor winning tonight. And Rhode Island, let's look at it. Gina Raimondo, she's the incumbent. She takes it. And so we have a few more results to get to. We're going to continue watching these races county by county, precinct by precinct in the case of Chuck. Our coverage of this historic election night is just getting started. So much more to come. We are watching races in Florida, in Georgia, in Texas, Missouri. The big, epic, perennial battlegrounds is coming down to the wire. And at stake tonight, who controls Congress? Republicans or Democrats? This is The Vote, America's Future on NBC.
Continuing our Commitment 2018 coverage now. Polls are closed in our area. They have been for, say, the last hour, almost hour and a half.
Numbers are coming in, and there were certainly plenty of numbers in line. Eager voters creating some long lines in some parts of the Carolinas and Georgia today.
Yeah, we are starting to get results in. On your screen right now are the current results for the South Carolina's governor's race between incumbent Henry McMaster and Democratic candidate James Smith. Here you see 54% of the vote for Henry McMaster. James Smith, 46% of the vote. We're not exactly sure where these votes are coming from, what part of the state they're coming from. That would have a say in how this is going to go. But this is where it is right now with 10% of the vote in.
They have gone back and forth. James Smith did have a lead when we were live in the 7 o'clock hour there, and of course you see that as flip-flop there. Still pretty close, and it is quite early in the counts.
Yes, so it is early going.
Very, very early. We have team coverage tonight from both the McMaster and the Smith camps in Columbia. We're going to start with Jane Rovelo. Jane, what's the mood?
Well, in a word, Michael. It is elation. They have the screen on behind us with our sister station here in Columbia. And anytime a GOP candidate looks like they're doing well anywhere in the country, big cheers go up here. It is a great festive party atmosphere. There's a lot of positive energy. State Attorney General Alan Wilson joins us now, and tucked under his arm his beautiful daughter Anna Grace. Good to have you both with us tonight. You did a lot. You're also up for re-election.
Yes.
You've done a lot of campaigning with the governor and the other state constitutional officers. How are you feeling about tonight, Alan?
It's clean sweep. I'm very proud of our team, and I'm so excited about the results. We're getting results coming in from all over the state, and we really do believe it's going to be a good night for us.
Well, it's clearly a family affair for you. What does this mean for your family?
Oh, listen, these kids have given up a lot. They've given their dad up from last year, and that's why I have my daughter here with me. My son's down in their room eating cookies right now. So we're having a great time spending time with our family.
Attorney General Alan Wilson, thank you so much. And Anna Grace, thank you for being with us tonight, too. Thank you. So a lot of elation, a lot of positive energy, even ahead of getting any election results. Of course, we will keep you updated throughout the night, live here in Columbia. Jane Rebelo, back to you.
Thanks, Jane. Competing with the beach music. We want to keep you out in Columbia, where we find our Tim Waller live from Democratic candidate James Smith's campaign. Tim, what's the mood there?
Michael and Carol, we are at full decibels here at the James Smith Watch Party in downtown Columbia. It has turned into a standing room only situation. And fortunately for us right now, so we can talk, the band has taken a little bit of a break. So all of the people here right now are doing what most folks do at election night watch parties. They're watching the big screen here, local television in Columbia, as the results pour in. A couple of times, with just a few precincts reporting statewide, it has shown James Smith up over Henry McMaster. Nothing you can take to the bank yet because so few precincts are reporting. But when that happened, there were big cheers here from the crowd. Certainly people here are hoping for big things from this Democratic candidate. James Smith telling us earlier today he believes he has a shot of winning the governor's race in South Carolina, even though a Democrat hasn't held that seat since 2003, the end of Jim Hodges' administration. Tim Waller, WYFF News 4, live in Columbia.
Thank you, Tim. Stay with WYFF News 4 throughout the night as results continue to come in. You can follow the ticker at the bottom of your screen and head to our mobile app as races are decided.
Those numbers are live. We'll be back shortly with another update. Back now to NBC Election Night coverage. Good night for now.
8:30 in the East. This is election night. Nothing short of control of Congress at stake tonight. The Democrats trying to regain a House majority. The Senate is a tougher road for Democrats. We'll see how they do, and we've got some calls tonight to discuss.
Polls are closed in Arkansas. Let's take a look at the governor's race there. And NBC News projects that Asa Hutchinson, the incumbent, will go on to victory in the Ohio governor race. Right now, too close to call. Richard Cordray and Mike DeWine. This is a seat that both sides have fought very hard for. In the Georgia governor's race, this is one that much of the country has its eyes on. Still too early to call. You see only 16% of the vote in there.
Florida governor, too close to call, and it is a close one at this hour. A lot of the votes been counted, but not all of it. In the Florida Senate, also quite close, too close to call at this hour. Indiana's Senate race, Casey Hunt just talking about this. There had been high hopes that Joe Donnelly, the Democrat, could hang on. It's too close to call. But you see quite a difference in the vote there at this hour. And here is a battle for the ages. Missouri, Claire McCaskill trying to hang on to her Senate seat in a state that is becoming redder and redder, and that is too close to call.
Let me just warn you both on Missouri and Indiana. Missouri and Indiana both have the Democratic vote, the counties that they get, pretty much the last counties that report their returns.
So you think that reflects
the point is, that's why we're not calling Indiana. You see that wide, right? You see that wide. If you look at Indiana, you see the wide disparity there. The fact of the matter is, Gary, Indiana, a big Democratic area, that is literally the last county to report, and you got to find out how much is there before you feel.
We got a call to make. Sorry, Andrea, I hate to interrupt you, but we got a call to make. It's Senator Menendez in New Jersey, blue New Jersey. He hangs on despite the fact that he went through a corruption trial that ended up in a hung jury. We are saying that he is going to win, although our graphic is frankly confusing me right now because it shows Bob Hugin in ahead, but it's Menendez who won according to our decision desk. That's our projection. Bob Menendez, the incumbent. Chuck was just explaining how we wait for certain votes to come in. We've got a bunch of nerds in the boiler room.
Yeah, and the way in New Jersey, obviously, you have exit poll. We have our own extrapolation of we match it up with actual precinct with actual returns and in the key precincts and that. And look, sometimes the first vote comes from a very partisan county in one direction. So that's why you'll see somebody again in that little upper right hand corner. You'll see the percentage of vote in, and in the case of New Jersey, it was 1% of vote in.
Looking for the graphic that just popped up there a moment ago, and we're watching the one drama of the night as to whether the Democrats will reach that 23 seats they need to take control of the House. Here's where things stand right now. They've added 2. Democrats now need 21 to a net gain of 21 to take control of the House of Representatives. And speaking of which, we've got some data coming out of Virginia, 5th District. Let's see if we can put that up. And the Denver Riggleman, Republican, is the projected winner there.
This is significant because that was our tsunami watch race in Virginia. Okay, it was an open seat. It's a Republican district. Leslie Coburn there, who was a longtime journalist, progressive journalist, had that flipped, then you were looking at something that we had never seen before on the Democratic side. So that is sort of the sigh of relief from Republicans. Okay. This could be a knife fight tonight. We'll see. We go to these other 2 though. You put up Virginia second. This is the official swingiest district in Virginia technically. If you looked at it on a 50-50, and guess what? The House race looks like exactly what a swing district House race looks like.
Right.
Virginia 7.
It's a fascinating race.
It is.
Why?
Dave Bratt, he was the Tea Party guy that knocked off Eric Cantor.
Eric Cantor was the majority leader in the House, the sitting majority leader, and the political earthquake was unseated by this Republican Dave Bratt.
One could argue before there was Trump, there was Dave Bratt, and that was the first canary in the coal mine that you were going to see a transformed Republican Party. Well, now Dave Bratt's playing defense, Abigail Spanberger, national security credential. This is a tough district for Democrats. It's a coin flip. I can tell you this, Democrats they claim they only needed 1 out of Virginia. If they don't get 2 out of Virginia, they're going to feel as if this is going to suddenly have everybody tighten up a little bit.
And here's the one they got that many expect Jennifer Wexton winning. This is Northern Virginia, District 10, Barbara Comstock, the incumbent, losing her race. So that's one of the pickups we've seen tonight in defense.
First of all, Comstock was behind from the beginning in this race. This is suburban Washington, D.C. She was too conservative for the federal workers. She stuck with Donald Trump, even though she didn't claim that she was a Republican in her advertisements. She's basically stuck with the president, and she was behind from the beginning. But the real race is Dave Bratt's race. That would be a really important symbol for the Democrats on the House side. Democrats on the House side were already counting their victories, and that they're talking about the leadership race. I'm getting all sorts of emails about whether Pelosi can win. That she's saying that she's ahead. The Black
That's like measuring dreams. Right. That means Democrats feel very confident.
This may be entirely too confident. I mean, it could be a lot closer than they had hoped.
Well, we just saw that from Chuck's bellwethers.
Well,
Where have you gone?
I was just going to say, what I want to do is I can do the best of all worlds. I can take you to a House bellwether that will also tell us something about the very tight Florida Senate race and Florida governor's race. This is the closest congressional race going on in the state of Florida right now. This is Florida 26. This is actually where I grew up, for what it's worth. I know I don't mean to be taking you to only congressional districts where my family lives, but this is actually the district I grew up in the sort of southwest part of Dade County. Carlos Curbelo, the incumbent here, he did everything he could to separate himself from Donald Trump. He knew he had to. As you can see here, this is a district that Hillary Clinton carried by a whopping 16 points. So these are the type of districts that Democrats believe they've got to win in order to win the House. So what I would just tell you, as we wait for this vote to trickle in Dade County, which will tell us a lot about this race, it's also going to help tell the story of Florida governor and Florida Senate as we wait for more Dade County vote to come in, more Broward County vote to come in. But the fact that this is as tight as can be tells you that it's early, but this is turning into more of a knife fight for the Democrats to find their 23 seats.
Has a Trump factor emerged here at all?
Not so far. I mean, other than in turnout. Look, when you win or lose a race by less than 1%, which is what's going to happen in the state of Florida, if you want to blame Trump, you're going to be able to blame Trump. If you want to credit Trump, you're going to be able to credit Trump. That's when you have that small of a race. Rick Scott's won both of his races by less than 1%, and Donald Trump wasn't president for either one of those. So I can't sit here and say we're seeing a Trump effect just yet.
Except that 2 out of 3 voters in our own exit poll said that Trump was a factor in their voting, and 26% say that they were voting in favor of Trump. 38% said they were voting against Trump.
Well, it's early yet. You're saying your tea leaves don't show a blowout for the Democrats, but we'll see. Is it going to be a good night, a great night, or a disappointing night for Democrats?
There you go.
Let's go to NBC's Morgan Radford. She's in Missouri. She's covering the Senate race there. She's at headquarters for Claire McCaskill, the senator who's trying to hang on and is in the fight of her life, Morgan.
That's right, Savannah. We're waiting for Senator McCaskill to arrive. And as you mentioned, she is in the fight of her political life. She is trying to hold on to her seat despite Republican challenger Josh Hawley, the 38-year-old attorney general who is gunning for her seat. But election polls, they closed here about 30 minutes ago, and we got some brand new statistics from those Missouri election officials. They said that they expect to see record turnout for this midterm election. It could, in fact, be higher than they've seen in more than 20 years. They also expect to see more than 2.3 million ballots cast by the end of the night, and that's about 55% of registered voters. We were at polling stations all day talking to people on both sides of the aisle. Democrats and Republicans seem to understand what is at stake here. They understand that control of the Senate could come down to this state right here in Missouri. And one thing to keep in mind is that Missouri does not have straight ticket voting, nor do they have early voting. So everything depends on these final hours in one of the closest Senate races in the country. Back to you.
All right, Morgan, I like that good old-fashioned election day. Early voting is great, but these folks in Missouri, they're going straight to the polls.
Yeah, NBC's Gotti Schwartz is covering the Arizona Senate race. He's at Arizona State University in Tempe, and a lot of folks still in line there.
Yeah, that's right, Lester. We've gone from extraordinary to unprecedented. I want to show you something over here. We just saw that. Those are voting booths that they just set up outside. That is how big the turnout here. Very unexpected. And to give you a little bit of historical perspective, this right here, this line, that stopped about right there in 2016. Now, it is extremely dark right now, but this line stretches at least 2.5 hours. Students say that they have been waiting for quite some time to cast their vote. They say that they're going to vote. They've actually got a DJ over here. They've got music playing, and they've got they're basically doing a lot of midterm cramming. Some of them say that they haven't even made their decision on who they're going to vote for. But we know that here, the main Senate race is Martha McSally versus Kirsten Sinema. There's one thing I want to show you. You can see the enthusiasm. But check this out. Somebody just wrote this. This says, FYI, both Martha McSally, Doug Ducey, endorsed by President Trump. President Trump moving large over what's happening here. A lot of people here say they are voting for McSally because she has President Trump's endorsement, and a lot of people here saying that they are also voting for Kirsten Sinema because she is an independent.
Gotti, thanks. Covering some miles there with that crowd, and if there was a ruler on the set, my knuckles would have been wrapped up. Tempe. I'll write it on a board.
Tempe, Arizona. We're talking hometowns. That's my home state. Don't say Tucson. It's Tucson. But we'll get to Arizona a little bit more later. NBC's Steve Patterson. He's out west, too. Nevada's Senate race is one to talk about here at the mall this afternoon or this evening in Nevada. Steve, tell us about it.
Savannah, I am at the mall. Since the control room started to tell me to stand by here at the mall, I was at the end of the line. Now I can't even tell you where that starts. It snakes all the way into the mall. Check this out. This line goes all the way around the corner now. Democratic strategists I've been speaking to that are watching this have to feel emboldened. That's because the strategy here for the Democrats is basically to build up a big firewall of votes in Clark County. That's where we are. That encapsulates Las Vegas, and to build up those votes to brace for moderate losses in places like Washoe County. That's where Reno is, and these rural districts that come in as the votes continue to come in. We can kind of snake around this and show you even more of this line as it stretches all the way down. Republicans, meanwhile, I've been speaking to say, hold on, not so fast. You guys don't pay enough attention to those rural districts. There's going to be big votes as the Republicans come out and show their support as this night goes on. There's razor-thin margins between Dean Heller, the incumbent, and Jackie Rosen, the Democratic challenger. We've been watching the polls. They've been in the margin of error ever since we started watching this race. It's exciting to watch this line. It's exciting to watch that race, and we'll continue to do so as the night goes on. Back to you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
And NBC's Garrett Hake is covering the Texas Senate race. He's at Democrat Beto O'Rourke's headquarters in El Paso. What are you hearing there, Garrett?
Listen, as the numbers are starting to come in, my Republican sources are all pointing me towards the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, the DFW area, at about 1 million votes counted so far. And Republicans are a little bit nervous about what they're seeing there. Beto O'Rourke performing very well in Dallas County, getting about 2/3 of the vote there. And in the suburban counties, Collin and Tarrant County, Cruz is leading, but just barely in Tarrant County. That's Fort Worth, Arlington. It's been trending towards Democrats in the last couple of elections. And the last numbers I looked at, it was essentially tied. That's not good news for Ted Cruz. Now, again, overwhelmingly in the state of Texas, the math favors Cruz, and Republicans I talk to aren't in any kind of panic yet, but they're watching what they're seeing in Dallas a little bit nervously. And oh, by the way, we're still waiting to see any numbers from Harris County, Houston, the biggest county in the state, where the O'Rourke campaign is expecting big turnout too, guys.
All right, good. A lot of money spent in that race. A lot of new voters brought in Texas.
Beto O'Rourke, I believe, raised more money than any Senate candidate in history. We'll find out if money can get you a win in deep red Texas. We're going to be right back with insights from election night veteran Tom Brokaw. Our coverage continues live in just a moment.
Regardless of where we live, we share a common belief that Georgia can do more, can be more for all of us.
And I got a message for all Stacey Abrams liberal friends coming to Georgia. This ain't Hollywood.
Okay, so how you doing? I'm doing great. This is kind of working out for me right now. I got 5 days. It doesn't look like it's working out, Nick. Oh, it doesn't look like it's working out? So what, the therapy? Please, Nick. I'm sorry, Dad. Why don't we just have lunch and talk? We can do that, right? Please. You think that you have this under control. I understand why I do things. It doesn't make me any different, all right? I'm attracted to craziness, and you're just embarrassed because I was like, this amazing thing, like your special creation or something, and you don't like who I am now. Yeah? Who are you, Nick? This is me, Dad. Here, this is who I am. This is not you. This is not you, Nick. What are you doing, huh? You always gotta be controlling everything all the time. Let me book your room at a hotel for a couple of nights. I want it to go like this.
Beautiful Boy, rated R, now playing in select theaters. Tomorrow.
So much at stake in our midterm elections.
After the historic midterm elections, wake up to the results on today. What happened where you are? Headlines across America and what it means for the future of the country. Tomorrow on Today.
This is Dr. Gunter Zoloff. Did he solve Carmichael's totient conjecture? Yes. Yes, he did. Or did he buy his car at drive time using the industry's smartest online tools? No, he did not. Dr. Gunter Zoloff was almost a genius. Get fast online financing and know your down payment. Shop over 15,000 vehicles at drivetime.com, the genius way to buy a car.
When you're in an accident, it's your right to choose where to take your vehicle. The insurance company could pick the place that works for them, but you deserve the best. And you should insist on Jock White for repairs. We work with all insurance companies to get you back on the road and your vehicle repaired like nothing ever happened with the best in business ones. You're a leader in collision repairs for over 23 years. When you want it done right, call Jock White. Call me at 313-9991. That's 864-313-9991. Or visit us at jockwhitecollision.com.
For over 40 years, Suttles Nut Farm has been your go-to place for every type of nut at great prices. We're now in Greenville, right off Woodruff Road. Better hurry, prices and supplies won't last. Make your holiday special with Suttles Nut Farm, Woodruff Road, turn beside Crystal. Stay up with WYFF News 4 and 11. Carol Clark and Michael Coggill, keeping you connected with what's happening right now. The local news you trust to end your day and plan for tomorrow. Stay up with WYFF News 4 and 11.
Democracy Plaza, welcome back. We have a call on a race that has been watched very carefully. It's the 6th district in Kentucky around Lexington, and Andy Barr, the Republican incumbent, will hold on there. The projected winner in the 6th district of Kentucky.
This is one of the races political watchers were looking at most closely because it was so tight, even though that's a district that President Trump carried by 16 points. A great recruit, people said, on the Democratic side, but it's not enough.
It isn't. It's funny. Democrats were actually trying to wave national reporters off this race over the last 48 hours as they saw numbers coming in. She ran a different kind of race. She didn't want to do super negative ads, and there's been some people that are backseat driving some of the decisions she made. But this is about a larger issue overall for this district, and why I think we may be in for a knife fight to 23, if you will, between the two parties here. And that's because this is one of those, this is Lexington, college town, yes, but it's a rural and ex-urban district around it. And in it's these split districts that have a little bit of suburbs and a little bit of rural that are about 50-50 each. Democrats have to win some of those in order to get the majority. Not all of them, but they got to win some of them. Virginia 7 is a similar one to that. That's what we're watching. That's that Dave Bratz seat. Well, so far, Republicans got to feel good. The rural and ex-urban turnout has been through the roof. Look, President Trump has a way to get his people out. That's what we're seeing in Florida. That's what we're seeing, I think, in the rural parts of...
And she was a terrific candidate.
Absolutely.
This is a woman with a military background, a great candidate. One of those special people that the Democrats felt that they had
Former Marine pilot.
Geography is destiny.
Let me bring in Tom Brokaw to the conversation. Tom, what do you sum up your observations at this point as we near the 9 o'clock hour in the East?
Well, going into today, I think there was a lot of hope on both sides, especially on the Democratic side, that this could be a very big night for them. But based on everything that we're seeing, we're going to wake up tomorrow morning. The country's going to still be very deeply divided. No question about it. There are some new players on the field. No question about that as well, especially on the Democratic side. They activated more women candidates. The African Americans are doing well and where they're running. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump and his followers are still intact if it stays the way that we're seeing it right now. And a big reason for that, I believe for some time, is the economy. The fact is the economy is chugging right along. We've got the greatest job creation since the 1960s. That's always an important factor when you're in a presidential election or any kind of an election year. Tomorrow morning, the presidential election for 2020 will begin because there are so many new players there. And there's somebody missing from tonight that we'll be hearing more about probably in the not too distant future. That's the special prosecutor, Mr. Mueller. He has not been talked about. He'll be a big, big player in the weeks and months to come for whatever he has to say, but he'll have something to say.
He'll have something to say, and if Democrats control the House, then what he has to say takes on even greater importance. Andrea, you wanted to add?
Oh, because they will have investigative powers, they'll have subpoena power, they can go after his tax returns. The Pelosi and the leaders, if they are the leaders, will fight back against a progressive or more liberal challenge to try to go after, impeachment. They don't have that kind of power. But to Tom's point, what's really interesting is that in the exit polls, it said that the economy, for the first time in memory, was not the biggest issue. It was health care, the issue that defined the Democratic races, and not immigration, which was what the president kept returning to, despite Paul Ryan just over this weekend saying, look at these job numbers, talk about the economy, don't talk about immigration. But it may prove that the president was right to try to get that base out and try to turn out this vote. It's still early to make that conclusion.
I agree with that, and I think the economy always holds the voter in place. If they're doing well, and especially in the industrial states where he surprised everyone by winning the presidency in the Midwest. So we've got a long way to go, but there's no kumbaya movement here at this point tonight.
That's right. Look, this is so far, look, we're basically got to the Mississippi River. So there is a whole other part of the country west of the Mississippi, last I heard. So we'll see. But so far, this is a mirror image of the last 4 elections we've covered here. I mean, it has been basically, there's a slight advantage for one party or the other each night, but we're a 47% nation with sort of the last 6% tipping the balance each night.
I will say this about Donald Trump and the Republican Party. They're much better at holding their people and organizing. They have an idea about what they want to sell, and they're holding them together. Democrats are more scattered across the political landscape in a lot of ways. They are bringing in a lot of new people, but their leaders are the same people who lost the Congress 3 elections in a row. And there are a lot of people out there in America who are saying, what are the Democrats about at this point? I need a I need a unified message about what they're going to deliver for me beyond health care.
And a lot of the Democrats running in red states tonight have said the Democratic brand has been a problem for them, and they're running moderate races. That's going to be the big debate as we go forward, what kind of Democrat race they should run, a progressive one to the left or one to the middle. Maybe we'll get some answers tonight. We're going to continue with Tom and our panel when we come back. Short break, stay with us.
To look at me now, you don't see psoriasis. You see clear skin.
You see me.
If you saw me before Cosentyx,
I was caught up. It was awful.
but I didn't give up. I kept fighting.
I got clear skin with Cosentyx.
3 years and counting. Clear skin can last.
See if Cosentyx can make a difference for you. Cosentyx is proven to help people with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis find clear skin that can last. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting Cosentyx, you should be checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and low ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, or if you've received a vaccine or plan to. If you have inflammatory bowel disease, tell your doctor if symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions may occur.
See me now. I'm still clear.
How sexy are these elbows?
Get clear skin that can last. Ask your dermatologist about Cosentyx.
How do you like your coffee? Dunk it. Pour it. Drink it. Love it. I like it international, and I expect to be delighted.
Importing ivory is illegal, so it's no surprise I get randomly searched when I travel. But the protein in pistachios helps keep my spirits up, which makes this strip search a little less humiliating. That's not ivory.
A once in 500-year storm should happen every 500 years, right? Fact is, there have been 26 in the last decade. All stated the captain with drones to assess home damage sooner. If a flying object damages your car, you can snap a photo and get your claim processed in-house. Not things. Plus, Allstate can pay your claim in minutes. Now that you know the truth, are you in good hands?
When we started, I had one thing in mind. Create the most insane athletic competition ever devised. Titans aren't born, they're made. Right here.
Welcome back. A lot of big questions, but of course, one of the big dramas of the night is can the Democrats gain control of the House? And we've got a media really gives us an idea.
Right, so this is the NBC decision desk at work looking at the races, looking at the vote that's been counted and the vote that has not been counted. And right now, NBC is projecting a 65% chance that Democrats will, in fact, take back control of the House of Representatives. But Chuck, the question for you tonight and for all political watchers is, even if the Democrats take control of the House, what would the margin be? And based on what we've seen in some of these battleground races so far, it is not a total blowout on the part of Democrats.
No, I can't imagine this thing going. If I had said earlier the over-under line, I would have said pre-election would have been 35. I'd have taken the over based on polling. Now I'm going to take the under at this point. I think we're looking at somewhere between 20 and 35 seats, which is why we're only at a 65%. 20 would mean they came up short.
Well, exactly.
That's why I'm saying the range.
Our meter would go back to
So
the red.
that's why the meter is barely over the majority.
We're just moments away from another wave of poll closings at 9 Eastern time. 14 more states, including key races in Arizona, Minnesota, Wisconsin, New York, and Texas. We'll be right back.
Continuing to do the 2018 coverage for you. Results are coming in from races across the region.
Among the races we are watching, United States House District 3, the Associated Press has called the race for Republican incumbent Jeff Duncan.
This is not a surprise there. This was expected. Gabrielle Komorowski joins us now from Anderson County and the Duncan headquarters. Gabby?
And we are here live right right now in downtown Anderson with Congressman Jeff Duncan. The results have been coming in, and we have actually just learned by looking on the WIFF News 4 app that you, it appears, have won re-election. We're hearing people.
I think they heard it now, too. They just heard it. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's great to win another term in Congress and continue the work that we've been doing. And it's great having a great group of supporters here tonight. We're just ready to get back to work now, and we put the election behind us, and try to learn from the campaign and what we may be able to do differently, communicating and working with all the people I represent.
A fifth term in Congress for you. What would you like to say to all the people who came out and voted for you today?
A big thank you. Thanks for your confidence. I'm humbled that you give me another opportunity to serve, and we look forward to continuing to engage all of our constituents, social media and in person, and just being really an open communicator. And just certainly appreciate the opportunity to go back to Washington and work with this president, keep this economy back on track.
We know that all seats in the House are up for grabs tonight. What have been your thoughts on the results that you've seen in other districts?
Well, the voter turnout was high all across the country, and I hope that means a red wave. I hope that means that we're going to maintain the majority. I really don't want to serve in the minority. I will, but we can get a lot more done for the president, for the American people, like we have been over the last few years, if we have the majority. And so I hope that this trend continues. We're seeing good things out of Florida. We're seeing good things in Kentucky, some of the races that were marginal. So, and then if we do maintain the majority, then we'll have a speaker's race going on, and who will take the leadership role away from Paul Ryan and lead us into the next Congress. That's important to me as well.
What do you plan to do for the rest of the evening?
Well, I'm going to go and talk to my mom and give her a big hug, and then talk to supporters, thank everybody. Probably give a speech here in a second, thank everybody. But I look forward to going back to Washington, and again, I'm humbled by the opportunity.
Congressman Jeff Duncan, elected to a fifth term in Congress. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And we'll send it back to you live from downtown Anderson.
Debbie, thank you. Now the race for Congress in South Carolina's 5th District. Let's take a look at the results if we can. Tonight was the second election for the seat in 16 months. And Michael, here we have 43% of the vote in. Ralph Norman leading with 57% of the vote. He's considered the incumbent. Archie Parnell, 42%. Michael Chandler with 1% of the vote, 906 votes.
That 5th district was held for a long time by John Spratt, a Democrat, just south of Charlotte there. Of course, this race all set up after Mick Mulvaney left the seat to serve in President Trump's cabinet. Results also coming in elsewhere. Let's go ahead and look here. This is District 4 for Congress. William Timmons, the Republican there with a 63%, 63% of the vote. Brandon Brown, the Democrat, 34%. Guy Fury ran quite a campaign in the 4th district. You saw lots and lots of his signs. He's at 3% right now.
Make sure you follow the ticker on the bottom of your screen as the results come in. And we will see you back here soon for another Commitment 2018 update.
Right now, we get you back to NBC special coverage of this midterm election night, a crucial one at that. Good night for now.
NBC News, the vote for America's future. Here's Lester Holt and Savannah Guthrie.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the 2018 midterm elections. It is 9 o'clock in the East. Polls now have closed in 14 more states across the country, leaving just 10 states where polls remain open.
This is the battle for Congress that's playing out tonight across the country, and we've got some races to call in a moment. First, let's remind you, Democrats would need 23 seats if they wanted to get back control of the House. So far, they've picked up two Democratic pickups. Right now, NBC News projects there is a 65% chance that the Democrats do take back control of the House based on the votes that have come in so far. That is just a meter that is projecting what the likelihood of that is. But we've got a big call to make in Indiana at this hour. Boy, was this a fight in the Midwest, and Joe Donnelly is the first Democrat to lose his seat in the Senate tonight. Mike Braun, the Republican, picks it up. This is a state that went big for Trump, but was a battleground in this Senate race. And let's go to West Virginia. Joe Manchin, another deep red state that he holds on. running a local race against Patrick Morrissey, and he is projected the winner.
All eyes on the Texas Senate race. Beto O'Rourke, Ted Cruz, and right now that remains too early to call. 54% of the voting, too early to call in Texas. The Arizona Senate race is too close to call. Kirsten Sinema and McSally. And in North Dakota, too early to call. Heidi Heitkamp in a tough race to hold on to her seat, the Democrat.
We got a bunch of calls to make. Minnesota, Klobuchar, Amy Klobuchar, she's going back to the Senate. In New Mexico, Senator Heinrich also headed back to the Senate. The incumbent wins there. A race in New York, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, she holds on rather easily against her Republican opponent. And in Wisconsin, we've got another winner to announce. Tammy Baldwin didn't ever really face too much of a race from the Republican opponent, Leah Buckmer.
And then in Wyoming, the Wyoming Senate, John Barrasso, the incumbent, will hang on to his seat, the Republican.
All right, Chuck.
Quick point about Indiana, by the way, the Indiana Senate race. That to me was as good of a bellwether as you were going to have. Let me tell you something about Indiana. It's a lean Republican state most years. In wave years, for Democrats, are when they win Indiana.
Oh,
They
I have
didn't
a call to make right
They
now.
didn't win Indiana.
Let me
It's
tell
not
you
a
about
wave year for
okay,
Democrats.
I see you're Indiana and I raised you Tennessee. Marsha Blackburn, the Republican, wins again another battle in the South. Phil Bredesen, very popular former governor, tried to make it a race, tried to run that local race versus more of a national race. Marsha Blackburn certainly was supported by the president, and we all remember his statement at the rally, a vote for Marsha is a vote for me. Well, tonight the Tennessee voters have sent Marsha Blackburn, longtime congresswoman, to the U.S.
By the way, guys, let me just throw this up there. This is our unassigned races. Look where the Republicans already are at. Republicans with called races are already at 49. We're sitting here. Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Montana, North Dakota, Missouri, Florida are what's left. All they need is one more win because 50-50, Pence breaks the tie. So if Republicans win Nevada or Arizona or Texas, North Dakota, we think they're favored in. The North Dakota race looks at the polls race, then the Senate is done for the night, and Republicans have held it.
Republicans having a good night in the Senate, and that is where President Trump really focused his travel and his efforts.
Absolutely. And look, let's go to Florida, because Florida is showing, Florida looks just like election night 2016. And let me show you why. It seems as if the Republicans just, if the county did not touch water, Republicans turned out and went through the roof. I'll give you one example. Here's Polk County, where Scott is leading here. He's overperforming Trump in Polk County. Polk, an important Republican county. He's overperforming him. Now, that said, it is not as if Nelson didn't do better than Clinton in, say, important Hillsborough County, which is Tampa. But the fact is, every county that didn't touch water in the state of Florida, that's red in here, you're seeing DeSantis and Rick Scott both seem to either match or overperform Trump. Now, let me show you the overall numbers here in the Senate race. As you can see, there's less than about 60,000 votes separate the Senate race. We still got 4% of the vote in. In the governor's race, it's a little bit more than that. It's about 90,000 votes. Here's what I can tell you about Florida. We think there's about 400,000 uncounted vote in Florida. We think most of it is sitting in Dade County and in Broward County. As you can see, 30% of the vote remains to be counted in Broward, and you have 13% of the vote remains to be counted in Dade County. Our estimations are the Democrats have to carry probably, both Gillum and Nelson here, 60 to 62% of that remaining vote, unless there's more vote remaining than we're estimating, for them to have a shot at eking this out. Right now, we're going to wait for all the vote to be counted, but we are looking at this thing to be decided probably by less than 100,000 votes on each side, maybe by less than 50,000 votes on each side.
The perennial battleground delivered again.
Chuck, thanks very much. Hallie Jackson is at the White House. Hallie, they're watching the same numbers and looking at the same things we're looking at.
And that call from Indiana is a big one, Lester and Savannah. That has been critical to the White House, and sources close to the president are already touting this, saying, hey, listen, this is a place. Remember, I was just in Fort Wayne, Indiana last night where President Trump held a rally for Mike Braun. He has now come out on top. So if this was a referendum on Donald Trump, the president is feeling very good right now. Sources are also pointing to that win by Andy Barr. I was talking to folks earlier in the evening who said, yeah, that's going to be a really critical early indicator for us and for how President Trump is feeling. And so victories in those two races are important. As Chuck talks through that map, there is a lot of confidence, a lot of optimism when it comes to that Senate race in North Dakota. There is a sense that Kevin Cramer is going to do very well against Heidi Heitkamp based on how the numbers have been going. And so with that, it's looking to be, as expected now from the White House, potentially a very good night for them on the Senate side. Now, on the House side, obviously a different story. But at the same time, from what we've been hearing from folks here close to the president's going to be able to come out and say, hey, listen, if in fact they are able to hang on to the Senate, we've got the Senate. We've blocked Democrats, he would say, from getting both chambers of Congress. And he might be saying that he's willing to work with, for example, Nancy Pelosi and Democrats if they do flip the House.
And there's the potential, Hallie, that they could pick up, the Republicans could pick up seats in the Senate tonight.
That's right.
All right,
Let's
thank
drill
you.
down some more of this. Let's go to Chuck now.
We got our fancy orange room here, which is all of our smart boiler workers doing the hard work here. So instead, you and I are going to do these. Casey, I know you've got some sources. What's going on in Florida?
We're talking to sources across the map in every region in both parties. And in Florida, we're hearing from both Democrats and Republicans that they don't think it's looking good for Gillum and, of course, for Nelson at this stage in the game. They're not sure there's any way that he can pull it out. Now, they are saying a hidden upside might be that Gillum did overperform, and that may help some of their House candidates further down the ballot. But I have to say, Chuck, overwhelming sentiment from all of my sources right now. This is a much better night for Republicans than many expected.
And very quickly, I got a Florida expert here, Bill McInturf, our NBC Wall Street Journal pollster. You do a lot of Florida polling. It looks like every county that didn't touch water produced a lot of DeSantis and Scott votes.
Look, I think what happens is we've talked about Trump approval, and Trump approval in Florida is 51. And guess what? If you're a liberal Democrat, carrying a state when you have Trump at 51% is a stretch. Now, this is so close, it's 1 point. But if you look for what we've been looking at, it's wherever Trump's performing, the Republican vote is holding.
Bill McInturf will be back a lot. Thanks very much. All right, guys. Savannah, back to you.
Yeah, I want to bring in Steve Schmidt to the conversation. NBC News political analyst. Steve, good to have you here.
Good to be
So we haven't seen the blue wave, and we've seen the Republicans make a strong stand to hold or increase their seats in the Senate.
I think it's early enough in the evening that we can tell that there is not a blue wave forming. There is not a blue tsunami that's going to repudiate Donald Trump across the country. In the states that Trump has campaigned in, late in the campaign, those states have delivered and performed for him. So if you're sitting at the White House right now, you know a couple of things for certain. You know that the worst case scenario has not materialized. You know that the chances are now overwhelmingly likely that there will be pickups in the United States Senate. And certainly when you look downrange at the House, though the chances are still more likely than not that there will be a Democratic majority and a Democratic speaker, the losses do not appear at this hour to be as catastrophic as they were predicted to be.
And they baked that in some of the recent comments, even the president himself noting that losing the House was a high probability.
Absolutely. And there's only been 3 elections in the last 118 years where the incumbent president's party has picked up seats in the first midterm. So structurally, there is always a strong headwind. The implication, though, for American politics is that if Donald Trump's campaign of incitement has worked here, the racial animus that was unleashed, the making up out of whole cloth, for example, the notion that there is an invading army marching north, disease infested, about to crash through the southern border, all of these things, the idea that there are millions of illegal aliens voting, if it is rewarded, if the lesson is that this works, it will have an enormous implication on our politics going forward into 2020 and an enormous implication inside the Democratic presidential primaries, which begin tomorrow.
But Steve, this is to caveat that this terrain, this Senate battleground, which is doing so well for President Trump and the Republicans right now, these were red states. This is whole country.
Indeed it is.
So, I mean, it doesn't that in any way temper. We don't know what's happening, for example, yet in urban districts. So we'll see whether that message really in other parts of the country.
We know it's talking about in a wave election that's nationalized on a referendum around, say, Trump, Indiana goes Democratic, doesn't stay Republican. So when you look at on the House races, we know enough already to be able to tell that the notion of a blue tsunami crashing over Donald Trump's Washington does not look like at this hour that it's materializing. In fact, when you look at the remaining U.S. Senate seats that are falling into place, chances are overwhelmingly likely that there will be pickups in the Senate.
Just very briefly, it's also not only who's getting elected, but the makeup of this election, because Marsha Blackburn is the first Republican to be elected from Tennessee who's not a moderate, not a Bob Corker. Go all the way back. They elect moderate Republicans from Tennessee, Lamar Alexander. She is a Tea Party elected House member who is very much a Donald Trump.
Maybe it's the red wave on the Senate side, at least.
Well, that exit poll showed it was for a Democratic Senate or Republican Senate in Tennessee. And it was I think it was a 30-point margin in favor of the Republicans. So I do think Tennessee. One thing we've learned tonight is Tennessee and Texas may both look like the same color of red, but they're different. I think Tennessee doesn't have a Democratic base.
So he's getting a more reliable vote.
Texas has a Democratic base, which is why there is I think a difference between how Beto O'Rourke has run versus...
We want to turn again to our correspondents covering key races around the country. Let's go to NBC's Kerry Sanders, who's covering the Florida governor's race. He's at Democrat Andrew Gillum's headquarters in Tallahassee. What's the mood there as we continue to see a very, very tight race, Kerry?
Well, they're nail-biting here. They're cheering at moments, but they're also praying. I've seen several people literally with their eyes up and their thoughts towards the heavens. You know, when I spoke to Andrew Gillum earlier today, I asked him, do you think it's going to be a late night? He confidently said, no, I don't think so. Well, it is going to be a late night because of how close the numbers are here. Those who have gathered here are excited and hopeful that they're going to be able to do well. But at the same time, you have to go over to Ron DeSantis, who is the Republican, and he has had so much support from Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Trump pushed him over the line in the primaries, and since then has been repeatedly campaigning in the state. So in many ways, as you look at this state race right now for the governorship, you're also looking at a referendum on the support in this state for Donald Trump. And don't forget, Donald Trump spends part of his time in this state at his place in Mar-a-Lago. So there are a lot of eyes on the third most populous state tonight, and I think it's going to be a late night. As we've heard, we're waiting for those numbers to come in from Broward County and Miami-Dade County. Broward County, of course, a heavily Democratic area where it's likely Gillum will pick up some votes.
Well, thank you, Kerry. We've got Chuck Todd continuing to crunch those numbers in Florida. We'll be getting back to him. Thanks.
Let's go to the other side of the race. Katie Beck's covering the Florida governor's race too. She's at Ron DeSantis' headquarters, Republican headquarters in Orlando. Katie, how are people feeling there?
Well, there's certainly a shot of optimism in the room now after DeSantis taking a narrow lead. Still waiting on those numbers from the Panhandle. Keep in mind, that is the district that typically votes very red, so that fares well for Ron DeSantis. I was just in the Panhandle last week doing some stories on early voting. They had to downsize their number of precincts from 44 to just 6 polling locations. So people, that may have something to do with the fact that these numbers are coming in a little bit late, but the DeSantis camp here is feeling optimistic at this point. Keep in mind, Florida governor's races are often nail-biters. The past two were decided in less than 1 point. And in fact, Rick Scott's victory was decided by less than 60,000 votes. So this type of narrow margin is not unusual for Florida. It is why it is such a key and pivotal swing state. But as Kerry said, this is a swing state that Donald Trump has put a lot of emphasis on in recent weeks. He's been here many times campaigning. He considers this his second home. He's actually said that at rallies, that he considers himself to be part Floridian. So this will certainly be a testament to how much his efforts here worked and how much that really helped to close this very narrow margin between these two candidates. We're still waiting. There's still a lot of votes to come in, but certainly the energy here sort of changed from tenuous to feeling a bit more optimistic at this point. Guys?
All right, Katie, we wait for Florida. The president went there, I think, 5 times since the beginning of the year.
You want drama? We got drama. Plenty of it to come throughout the evening. We'll take a short break. Be back with more of our 2018 election coverage here on NBC.
Deductible?
Definitely speaking insurance.
Additional interest on umbrella policy? Can you translate?
Damage minimization of civil commotion.
When insurance needs translating, get answers in plain English at ProgressiveAnswers.com.
He wants you to sign Karen's birthday card. It's a high honor.
For years, I thought I was lactose intolerant. Turns out I was just sensitive to a protein commonly found in milk. Now with A2 milk, I can finally enjoy cereal again.
It's totally natural, and having only the A2 protein makes all the difference.
Cereals, smoothies, coffee, everything.
My first latte in 12 years.
A2 milk. Real milk that's easier on digestion. Love milk again.
Friday, two lovers torn apart by a curse.
I'm not gonna let that happen.
But we're saving that life. He's sacrificing another.
I'll be damned for eternity.
New Midnight Texas, Friday at NBC.
We're celebrating our 67th anniversary with guaranteed lowest prices on the #1 rated brands. Only at Jeff Lynch Appliance and TV Center. Queen-size luxury foam or pillow top mattress by Simmons Beauty Sleep, only $477. Save up to $900 on Serta's iComfort mattress sets. Earn up to $500 in-store gift card on all furniture purchases. Save up to 45% on beautiful holiday furniture. For the very best service, selection, and price, come to Jeff Lynch Appliance and TV Center's 67th anniversary sale.
For over 40 years, Tunnels Nut Farm has been your go-to place for every type of nut at great prices. We're now in Greenville, right off Woodruff Road. Better hurry, prices and supplies won't last. Make your holiday special with Tunnels Nut Farm. Woodruff Road, turn beside Crystal.
Wake up and watch Jeff, Amanda, and Dale. A new team or familiar routine. Live, local breaking news that fits your morning. Wake up and watch WYFF News for Today.
Welcome back. Election night 2018. Let's check into that Florida governor race. Still too close to call Andrew Gillum and
I know, I'm cleaning up my room.
Still some votes out there to be counted. In the Georgia governor's race, this one all eyes, but on this one, Abrams and Kemp, 36% in, too early to call in Georgia.
Kansas governor.
Kansas governor, too early to call.
Let's go to Wisconsin governor. Too early to call, but we do have Tony Evers leading in the vote that's been counted so far. Here's a call we can make right now. Alabama's governor, Kay Ivey, elected there quite handily. New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, he is headed back to the State House in Albany.
And check out the Texas governor's race, and Greg Abbott, the incumbent Republican, will return for another 4 years. And the Oklahoma governor, Kevin Stitt, will handily win over the Democrat. And this is the Florida House District 27, and Donna Shalala, victorious, an important pickup for Democrats here. And we have the chart we've been following. Where do they stand right now? The Democrats need 21 more.
Yeah, they have two pickups.
I thought you made the important point. We've been sitting here an hour.
Yeah.
Since and they've had two pickups.
That's what I just.
An hour ago, two pickups, right?
Right. I did all my homework, Chuck. We have like 70 competitive House districts. Only 2 Democratic pickups so far. This is not a blue wave.
It is not a blue wave. Look, here's one. This is the right next door to Florida 27. This is Florida 26. And when we can get the rest of this vote in, I have a feeling we can get the rest of the governor and Senate race vote in. As you can see here, though, these are just really tight races. Let me show you. We looked at some of these early poll closings. Look, we've been following some races in North Carolina. These are just very tight. None of them are blowouts. It doesn't mean Democrats still may not win some of these by half a percentage point. But if you look at these target races we've been watching, let me just push you through here to some of these results. You can see they're all very close still. So there's a lot. These are just turned into hyper-competitive races. Republican turnout was high. Democratic turnout was high.
We're just getting a call of another Democratic pickup, Carly. This is Pennsylvania District 5. Mary Gay Scanlon wins. That's a pickup for Democrats.
Pennsylvania is some good terrain for Democrats right now. There was a court order redistricting, which meant they've redrawn the maps. And
this was suburban Philadelphia.
Democrats are expecting 3-4 pickups out of Pennsylvania in order to get to their 23, but they were expecting a lot of things.
All right.
They haven't gotten yet.
I think the bottom line is we're in for a long night, folks. We're so glad to be with you. We're going to have a lot more to come. Be right back after this.
There are so many toothpastes out there. Which one should I use? Choose one that takes care of your gums and enamel. Harmful plaque bacteria hide below the gum line, and plaque can lead to weakened enamel and other problems. So now I use this.
Crest Gum and Enamel Repair works below the gum line to neutralize harmful plaque bacteria and helps repair and strengthen weakened enamel. Gum and Enamel Repair.
Healthier mouth.
Crest, healthy, beautiful smiles for life. After walking 6 miles at an amusement park, Bill's back needed a vacation from his vacation. So he stepped on the Dr. Scholl's kiosk. It recommends our best custom-fit orthotic to relieve foot, knee, or lower back pain, so you can move more. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
So a tree falls on your brand new car and totals it. As if that wasn't bad enough, now your insurance won't replace it outright because of depreciation. If your insurance won't replace your car, what good is it? You'd be better off just taking your money and throwing it right into the harbor.
Regret that.
With new car replacement, if your brand new car gets totaled, Liberty Mutual will pay the entire value plus depreciation. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
I've made many discoveries in my life, but you don't have to be an Einstein to know it's more important than ever to keep dreaming.
Keep your dreams alive. Start with a good night's sleep. Unisom sleep tabs help you fall asleep 33% faster.
At Wayfair.com, we think that when the big stuff is free, it's just better.
Oh, Wayfair has free shipping. Game changer. Fast better, free better, everything's better. Right, free shipping.
Orders over $49. Shop better at Wayfair.com. Wayfair, you got just what I need.
New Amsterdam is Tuesday's new hit drama. Can I help? And now you can stream all episodes at any time.
The system is broken. We can only help if we take risks.
New episodes of New Amsterdam return next Tuesday on NBC.
And as we come back from the break, we'll show you the Texas Senate. Too early to call. Millions have been poured into this race. A lot of eyes on it, but too early to call. I have moved myself over to the board.
Welcome, buddy.
Ostensibly enjoying you, but also stretch my legs.
Just so you know, that's a lot of gray. You know what gray means? It means we got a lot of vote that hasn't even been called yet. But so, more than half the vote in Texas, 1,600 votes, less than 1,600 votes are separating up. Where are the outstanding votes? Everywhere in gray. So trying to figure out where's that? Yeah. Pretty much somewhere in every county. So we got a long way to go in Texas. Who knows? Speaking of a long way to go, let me tell you something about the state of Florida and the rules in the state of Florida here. We believe all the remaining vote is in Dade and Broward. Right now, as you can see, there's 0.6% separate Scott and Nelson. 0.6 is important, Lester, because if it drops to 0.5 or lower, below 0.5% in the margin, it's automatic recount. The likelihood that the Senate race goes inside into recount is very high because when you look, Dade County still has 9% still got to come in. And in Broward County, we think there's over 100,000 votes just coming in. And as you can see here, Nelson won the county almost 70-30 split. So you can see there is a path to a recount for Bill Nelson. However, for Mr. Gillum, he looks like he's going to be a little farther away. As you can see, it's a full percentage point. He's got a lot of ground to make up. There may not be enough vote for Gillum to make up enough ground, even to get it into recount.
There was some thought that Gillum would be the one pulling the coattails of, or pulling along Nelson. Didn't happen.
I have to say, this is where I would spend a lot of my time trying to unpack what happened to Andrew Gillum. He under the one place, he overperformed Hillary Clinton in just about every county. But a big place he didn't do it is in the biggest county, in Miami-Dade County. He underperformed her about 4 points here. And I can't help but saying the S word, socialist. A lot of Hispanics.
We'll continue to watch those returns coming in from Florida and the rest of the country after a short break.
And we are continuing our Commitment 2018 coverage now. Results are coming in for races across our area.
Let's get you right to the board here. NBC calling it for Henry McMaster. He is officially the governor-elect. According to NBC's call tonight, you see the numbers there, 56% for the governor-elect and the governor. James Smith with 44% in the race for governor of South Carolina right now. Again, NBC projecting Henry McMaster the winner in the governor's race in South Carolina.
And as you might expect, we have team coverage this evening from both the McMaster and Smith camps in Columbia. Jane, let's start with you. What is the mood like there?
Well, Carol, I had to bend down for a second to turn up my earpiece so that I could hear as you mentioned, NBC has called it for McMaster. They just showed it up on the big screen there via our sister station here in Columbia, and a big cheer came up from the ballroom here at the Palmetto Ballroom at the Hilton Columbia Center. The mood is ecstatic. The food is gone. The spirits are high. The ballroom is packed. It's just an incredible night down here. The mood was very hopeful in the very beginning that the Republicans would sweep. Of course, this is the party for McMaster and Abbott, but it's also the party for the constitutional officers, all of them. Governor McMaster running his campaign, crisscrossing the state in the last 5 or 6 days leading up to tonight, and he campaigned with all of these constitutional officers. State Treasurer Curtis Loftus told me today, he's running for his third term, he tells me today no one is more energized than Henry McMaster through this election cycle.
Well, I think we're going to sweep. I think we're fortunate. We're a good conservative state, and people will know where they are. We're rooted in the whole South, and we're just good, honorable people, and I think we'll do just fine. And as long as we continue to work hard and be faithful and be honest with the people, we'll be in good stead.
Now, again, there's a lot of enthusiasm here, Carol and Michael, but nobody is saying that Henry McMaster is the winner until Henry McMaster comes into the ballroom himself. He had told us in advance that he probably would not make an appearance in the ballroom until all of the numbers were in. So, not sure if he's waiting for James Smith to concede or if he's waiting on more precincts to come in, but we should see the governor pretty soon here. So many, especially since NBC has called a race for him and others. We'll bring it to you all live. Jane Robolo reporting live in Columbia. Back to you all.
Jane, thank you for that. And speaking of James Smith, he is in Columbia as well. And Tim Waller is live from his headquarters tonight. Tim.
Michael and Carol, I spoke a few minutes ago to James Smith's campaign manager, Brad Morgan, and I told him that NBC News has called the race in favor of Governor Henry McMaster, and I asked for Morgan's response, and he said, "We're still waiting to see what happens." He told me a little while ago, before the NBC projection, that what happened during the race between Governor Nikki Haley and Vincent McKean, where the race was called a couple of minutes after 7 o'clock, he said that's not going to happen with them. They're going to wait for the full results to come in before conceding, but now this is a brand new development, so we're waiting to see what the Smith campaign will do. Back to you.
All right, Tim, thank you.
Make sure you do follow the ticker at the bottom of your screen. Results are coming in. Those are live results. Numbers are just pouring in from both the Carolinas and Georgia. We'll keep you up to date.
We'll see you back here soon for another Commitment 2018 update. And now we want to get you back to NBC's special coverage of election night.
We are watching the votes come in here at Democracy Plaza, NBC headquarters in New York. And joining us now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Of course, Lindsey Graham not on the ballot tonight, but happy to share some time with us. And Senator, you've got one new Republican coming to the Senate from Indiana. You've got a hold in Tennessee. Do you feel like this is a vindication of President Trump's strategy, particularly on the issue of immigration and saying that there was a caravan about to invade the United States and, you know, that kind of rhetoric? Do you feel like you're giving him credit for drumming up the vote for Republicans?
I think there's three things. I think the Kavanaugh effect was real. It united Republicans. I've never seen anything in my life to bring the Republican Party together more than the Kavanaugh hearing. I think the caravan was a nightmare for Trump state Democrats and the growing economy. We were dealt a good hand. What does this mean? That the conservative judicial train is going to keep running if we hold the Senate? I think we will.
But I think those three things were a nightmare for Trump state Democrats: Kavanaugh, the caravan, and a good economy.
Senator, have you seen anything in the results so far tonight that would dissuade you from the idea that Democrats will likely take the House at some point tonight?
No, I think you're going to have pretty much what people thought. Probably, a small majority in the House. I think we'll pick up 3 or 4 seats. I don't know what's going on in Texas. Come on, Ted. But, at the end of the day, I think we're going to have a Democratic House and a greater majority in the Senate, and it'll be up to the president and all of us to find a way forward. Infrastructure, immigration reform, sentencing, prison reform are all possible with divided government.
Are you worried about Ted Cruz?
Well, I'm not worried. I'm concerned. O'Rourke's doing a hell of a job. I mean, I thought the socialism thing is not working in Florida, but it's working in Texas. So go figure. What y'all about?
I don't know if you can see we just put the numbers up. It is too early to call, but...
it's too early, but socialism is bigger than Texas, and I thought it would be.
Well, Senator, I got to ask you about Attorney General Jeff Sessions. A lot of folks think the president, who has made no secret of his displeasure with his own Attorney General, a lot of people, and you put you in this category, basically said Sessions is likely gone after the midterms. Do you still believe that to be the case?
I think Jeff will step aside after the midterm, and the president will nominate somebody as more confidence.
Resign or be fired?
I like Jeff, but it's clear. Well, we'll see. But, every president deserves an attorney general to have confidence in. I like Jeff Sessions, but this is just not working. So if we hold the Senate, I think you'll probably see a new attorney general sometime next year.
Hey, Senator Graham, Chuck Todd here. I'm just curious. You were Mr. Gang of Eight.
Chuck.
How you doing, sir? You were Mr. Gang of Eight back at a time when, and I believe that you still are.
Yeah.
But I'm curious now on immigration reform. Do you think that things have gotten harder now to figure out this compromise on immigration? It looks to me that way when you see how polarized the public seems to be on the issue.
Right. Well, let me tell you, 70% of the public believes that the DACA recipients should, it was executive overreach, but 70% of Republicans believe the DACA eligible recipients should be allowed to stay in the country because they got no place to go. 70% of the country wants better border security. That's a good place to start. The one thing I can say, Chuck, you're smart about this. We were dealt a good hand in the Senate. I think we played it well. The Democrats were dealt a good hand in the House. Looks like they're going to win. The wall for DACA is a good place to start. To think that we can't solve problems with the House and the Senate being divided is a mistake.
Can you talk the president into that deal?
Yeah. I don't know, but I'll tell you this. The president will be on the ballot in 2020. I think he helped us a lot in the Senate, but we have to deliver. Prison reform and sentence reform, I think we'll get through both bodies. Immigration reform, a down payment on comprehensive reform, DACA and the wall, and an infrastructure bill. I think Democrats in the House would be receptive to that. But it's up to the president and all of us to work together. If they want to impeach him, it's not going to go very far. If they're willing to work with him and he says no, he'll have a problem.
Well, Senator, it's always good to talk to you. We got to jump. But by the way, would you like to be Attorney General? If asked, would you serve? No. Thank you very much. We'll leave it there. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Thanks for your time, sir. Appreciate it. Savannah, I've been told pretty authoritatively that Jeff Sessions is going to quit before he is fired. That is in play. And also from people very close to the situation, there's going to be a wholesale shakeup. That's been certainly projected. We've seen that coming. And it's going to go beyond, beyond Jeff Sessions. We don't know what is going to happen with Jim Mattis. The defense secretary has certainly lost favor with the president. He is not in favor with John Bolton, the national security advisor. There's been a lot of poisoning of the well, if you will, from people inside the White House against Jim Mattis. Mattis is not one to quit, not one to walk away, but he's been really marginalized in that he was against. Well, a lot of people believe that he was against this border deployment and hasn't spoken up about that.
But talk about Sessions for a moment, though. If you remove him from the equation, where do we go with the Mueller investigation?
That is a big question, because if without Sessions, then you do not have a recused Attorney General. You can have an acting Attorney General who would not be recused. That would be Rod Rosenstein, since they're no longer in charge of it. Exactly, and since they're holding the Senate, most likely
they don't have to worry about confirmation.
Net negative on the monoprobe and the exit poll.
People don't
More people disapprove than approve.
Well, branding works. When you call someone something a witch hunt over and over again, Donald Trump may be the greatest marketer in history.
Witch hunt, angry Democrats.
Absolutely.
Steve Schmidt in here because a midterm shakeup certainly is something that's not unprecedented, and it's certainly a president's prerogative. What do you think will happen in terms of these potential moves out of the White House?
Well, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of turbulence in Washington. It's not going to be just in the White House. You're going to see an